Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary pals, please give a warm welcome to our guest and friend on today's wonderful episode of Getting Excited About Movies. Today's guest is Zara Hoffman, Tom, and your host, me, Glory. Yay, I've made it too. Yay. Wait, I think I hear an echo. I hope it's not me. Nope, it's not. Okay, yay. Okay, well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Yay. We made it. It was dicey there for a little while. But we're here, and it's all going to be good. So, Zara, how you doing?
I'm good. Very excited to talk about Avengers. Might be a little bit sleepy because I went to bed super late, but...
Oh, same.
But, all of us.
Yes. Very
I tried to be good because I knew this was hanging today, and then my brain was like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that was me last night. And quite frankly, I was binging Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame.
I mean, so it was homework.
Yes, it was delightful homework. Yes. So, thank you for coming, Zara.
Thank you for having me.
I am so thrilled you're here again as a repeat friend and guest.
I don't get rid of me. I just keep coming back.
I mean, you are always welcome. The door is always open anytime. And in fact, I didn't quite get a chance because ADHD is real today, y'all. This is a heavy ADHD day that I forgot to pitch next month's show to Zara. So I get to pitch it to everybody here. June, we're doing a new show called Raving Reader Roundup, and really it's about writers and community, but also like the skills that make writers like even better. So the first episode, June 7th, is going to be pitches and queries.
Oh, and please have me.
Yes, okay, yes, please come. Please, yes. I think pitches and queries are actually a really big deal, important. Even if a person never intends to do traditional publishing, quite honestly.
Oh, 100%. And I'm going to save the rest of my comments for that stream.
If a writer only does fan fiction, I actually still think pitches and practicing pitches and blurbs, therefore, because blurbs, let's be honest, blurbs are a form of pitches, are really important and make writing better, make writers have an easier kind of roadmap. I think it just really helps improve the craft for each person who really practices it. However, that said, I'm coming from a place of, I used to do sales, and every product I sold, I had a quick elevator pitch for. So I've had a ton of practice. And so I'm like, look, y'all, I think it's really helpful. Also, quite frankly, it's fun because once you do it enough, you're like, it's a Mad Lib game.
I feel like there are people who hate it, but I agree with you because I've always had a very marketing mindset, even before I kind of knew more stuff that I do now since having certain internships and my current grad school program. But yeah, totally agree. Also, I'll probably say it during that stream too, but the traditional publishing industry is very annoying because when you hear book blurb, to them, they're like, oh, it's the authors of other books being like, this book is amazing. Couldn't put it down, the stuff that you put on the front cover or the back cover of a hardcover. And to every reader, if you're like book blurb, you're like, yeah, the description. So yeah. So book blurb, I've actually in my brain have kind of stopped using that term, but I know what you mean. And it's important.
Yeah, I think and part of why I think it's actually super important for writers and for readers, quite frankly, is because of R.L. Stein's math class. So,
I haven't taken it yet. I haven't. Okay. So I apparently have homework to do before that.
Even if you don't want to write scary stories or you don't want to write for middle grade, I still actually really recommend R.L. Stein's masterclass.
When is the stream happening?
The June 7th.
Okay.
Same time, same bat chime, same bat channel.
Okay, that's right. I figured. I just wanted to make sure.
I'm literally writing your name in there right here. That's what
I'm writing into my bullet journal that I need to watch R.L. Stein's thing before that stream so I can. But yeah.
Yeah, y'all thought we were talking about Avengers, but real quick, here's my pitch, and it's not that good. Ha ha ha. But like R.L. Stein, part of his like pre-outlining process, like when he's really working on ideas for a story, he actually goes over getting a really hook-laden title and a very, strong pitch.
That's how I write my books too. I do. I get the idea, and by idea I mean I get the main character with a name is in this situation. Mm-hmm. Yes. Here's the title, and then before I do anything else, I write all that down as like a book cover description, not just like notes to myself, but like a book cover description, and that's what I then.
And that is a lot of what he does before, and that guides his outlining, as well as it guides his character development. And I think that makes for very strong stories because let me tell you, middle graders.
I didn't know I had so much in common.
You're already so close to genius. You're already there, Zara. I would dare to say you are already in genius territory. You and R.L. Stein are in agreement, and I agree with both of you. So maybe I'm biased, but I don't care.
You're totally biased, but I'll take it.
But I mean, like, I really was like, because, like, let me tell you, I used to teach middle grade, and they would rather murder other children than read. They would rather murder other children than learn, quite frankly. So you have to make it really fun for them to learn.
You're talking about, like, the kids, right?
Like middle school children.
Yes.
Okay.
They would rather commit crimes.
I'm like, violent crimes. There could be a lot of subjects that are encapsulated in that day, and I'm like, is that the teachers? Is that the kids?
Well, I mean, like, the teachers would rather just drink, frankly. They would rather drink and run away. But yeah, so I mean, like, I love teaching middle grade. I taught middle grade poetry, so I got to be part of the Poetry Out Loud program.
Maybe I actually would have grown up liking poetry if you.
I loved it, and I loved like introducing kids to all sorts of fun poetry rather than boring old poetry about dead men. Who cares? Instead, it's like, let me tell you exciting poetry, and also like the recitation of poems, even without memorizing, can be really exciting, and it is a way to actually teach writing voice, and that was what I found out by accident. So, speaking poetry, essentially speaking someone else's words, really helps you develop your own writing voice. So, by the way, that's just a shortcut. There you go. So, if anybody else is like, anybody else ever says to you, I have such a hard time. Everybody keeps saying I need to develop my writing voice. What do I do? And the answer is you need to start like literally taking other people's poems you like and just reciting them in a dramatic way to your friends and family. Like, it's after dinner. Guess what? Y'all have to listen to my latest favorite poem. And it really does help because I found that it worked for my students. I didn't intentionally mean to help them develop their writing voice, but it made a huge difference. So anyway, back from that tangent to my original tangent, which is about pitches and queries. So that is next Monday. I hope everyone will come. Barrett's going to join us, and maybe Steph and Dahl are also going to join us. Stephanie Whitson and Dahl Cecil Runo.
Dahl was on a stream of mine that I actually hosted multiple months ago now, don't remember, where I was critiquing pitches and queries for that season's Pit Mad event.
Yeah, because Dahl's been working on that for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and she was let's share some knowledge.
Yeah, there was one line of feedback that I gave them that like has been apparently like a guiding light, and I was like, great, I'm glad something I said was helpful. Where it was like, if it's between like style and clarity, you always have to pick clarity, like in a pitch.
Yes, absolutely. Style is definitely for prose, but clarity is what you need for your initial hook. And then anytime you need a hook, you need it to be clear. Stylistically, that's for like the middle section. So anyway, on the 14th, on June 14th, we'll be talking about unlocking demographics and branding. And which I think is really important. I think it's very important for writers to understand the demographics that really enjoy their writing, as well as their genre demographics, if it applies. as well as like branding. Branding and demographics really do go hand in hand. On the 21st, we're going to talk about community building, both writer communities and reader communities.
Can you sign me up for all of these, please, and thank you?
I would absolutely 1000% be so just Sarah. I'll just leave your picture on every one of them. And then on the 28th, we're going to talk about marketing and promotion. So, and I feel like this is so important for writers. I feel like so many times we as writers are writing in our rooms, we're writing in coffee shops, but we're kind of isolated in the act of it. We're kind of disconnected from the community that really is thirsty for what we have to share. And so this is about how to bridge that gap to find the right readers and the right communities to help keep feeding that writer into, a fully fledged, I don't know, what is the word? A fully fledged kind of profession, I guess. That they feel very firmly in their profession, because imposter syndrome is a great way to kill creativity.
Don't need to do that.
Exactly. But when for instance, when I know that there are people truly anticipating the latest installment of my Sadie and Clem story, it really helps me go back to them. I know that there are people who are truly looking forward to other stories of mine, as continuation. And that really feeds my creativity of when I don't feel like sitting down and writing, when I'm like, well, maybe this is all just dumb, silly stories. I think of the actual readers who are like, please, 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 you will make my day. You will make my month if you will just please publish a new story. And that helps motivate me through that imposter syndrome. So that is for the entire month of June, sort of in anticipation of Camp Nano in July. We thought this would be kind of a great way to kind of warm people up to that. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. And I hope everybody will come. Again, it's going to be Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, the same time we always do. So we'll be doing here.
Same bat channel.
Same bat time, same bat channel. That is how old I am. I watched them on the rerun, so I'm not actually that old. Anyhow, before any further, I just want to go ahead and say hi in the chat. BA's here. Hello, darling. It is lovely to see you. How are things in your neck of the woods? Tom's over here in the chat doing double duty, because I like to say it. B's I love the introduction. Thank you so much. Let me just start by pitching my next show. And Maggie's here. Hello, sweetie. Hello. So, Zara.
Yes.
I realize we're almost 15 minutes into the show. Would you like to do an official intro?
Sure. I was just writing down all those dates in my bullet points. Don't forget.
I have a picture, and I can literally send it to you on Instagram so you can just see what everything is.
That's it. Please.
But yes, would you like to do an intro, for archival purposes?
Sure. Hello, my name is Zara Hoffman. I'm the self-published author of 5, soon to be 6, and then many, many more books. I am an author tuber where I make videos about writing and my love of musical theater. I don't necessarily go into the storytelling of musical theater as a breakdown, but they both exist. And then I host writing sprints every Sunday morning on YouTube and Tuesdays and Fridays on Twitch.
Thank you. Tom, would you like to do one? Again, it's totally optional.
Why not? At least practice. Okay. All right. Hey, I'm Tom. Starting a new Bookstagram tube or something called Tom's Hot Takes, where I'm just doing sort of my summaries of books and why you might want to read them. And then also, hopefully, sometime at the end of this summer, I'll be starting up the Writer Recharge, which will be a weekly stream on Twitch or YouTube of just, we'll sit down, watch some trailers, chat, kind of get, recharged and give your brain something else to think about, because it's fun to think about what the movies could be and what stories could be, to just play. I mean, we're all storytellers. Let's play together.
Cool. Thank you, Tom. Well, I guess if everybody's doing it, peer pressure, I'll do it. Hi, I'm Glory, and you've wandered into my channel. I'm so happy you're here. And if you are new here, we talk about storytelling. And sometimes, because I'm autistic, we talk about autism as well. Let's be honest. We probably always talk about autism a little bit because there's no way to separate me from my autism. It's part of me. So it informs all of my opinions and my storytelling. Next month, we'll be doing Raving Reader Roundup, where we try to help writers find their reading communities and just, have a good time. And if you have a good time here, I hope that you will click the like button. Maybe if you haven't already, if you're very new here, then you maybe click the subscription button. I'm throwing that out there, as well as the notification button so you always know when I've uploaded something new. And if you're really finding something that we talk about to be interesting, informative, maybe sharing it with others, we would absolutely love for you to share us with all your friends or anybody that you think should know about us. So thank you for coming. And with that, hello. And we are going to talk about the Avengers, but really we're going to talk about ensemble characters and multiple POVs. And sure, there'll probably be some hot takes about what we really think about, Tony Stark, Spider-Man. I don't know. Thanos. There's a lot of opinions about Thanos.
I have a hot take, or not a hot take.
Is it?
I have a take on every single character, and it's hot because I'm passionate about it, but I don't think a lot of them are controversial, but it's more just like, if someone were to argue with me, I'd be like, come at me. I got slides, basically.
Let's go for the hot takes now. Let's do them.
You start.
Tom, you want to drop any of your many hot takes?
You're muted.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was like. Am I?
No.
Oh, thank God. I was like, am I just...
It finally happened, Glory. You had a little mini stroke live on camera.
I knew this would be it. This is how it would happen.
This is how you know that I'm a good friend, and I can just let you believe that you finally snapped.
Don't we all have that? Anyway, so like the main hot take I have for Avengers in general is that most of the characters, the heroes, do not actually have a moral code. They are winging it throughout every story, and that's where the problems really come in. The second one, I have to admit, the more I've thought about it, Captain America is a bit self-centered and malicious in just how much he will do whatever it takes to get his way. And he lies a lot. Like, wow, I didn't realize before that how problematic.
Captain America definitely has a ends justify the means sort of idea, and I find that wild.
Which is what he accuses Tony of.
I mean, these two peas in a pod, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, is that I think they are both, I wouldn't say they're equally Machiavellian and equally, I was going to say altruistic, which wouldn't be inaccurate, but it's not the term I'm looking for. But my point is that, like, if you're going to have, like, what Steve says he, like, acts like he does, and what Tony, if you took them at face value in their Civil War sides, whatever, let's say, like, that was, like, parts A and B, and they both have both. I wouldn't say that they're both 50-50, or that they're like, oh, they say this, but they're really completely the other. But they're so much more similar in that the circumstances dictate what they do, like which side of the coin they're more on. And then it's just for the sake of storytelling, they're almost never on the same side of the coin at the same time. Because it's more interesting to have conflict within the hero group than just like, oh, like the heroes are all united and there's no problem. The only problem is that they're so much smaller than the giant army that they're fighting. So like they're going to win because like the power of teamwork gets them through. And like, that's really all it is. And it's like, okay, fine. But like when you have the group fighting amongst themselves, because we're all humans, and by human, I mean, we have emotions that and are sometimes self-contradictory and other things. Not that they're literally human because Vision. But like, you know, it's
look at you being inclusive. But yeah, their conflict works so well because they share so much in common. They try to pretend to be very different people from each other, but the more you watch to them, more you watch their character and what their real inner motivations and morals are, the more you see just how in common they are. And they are a trip.
Maggie, I feel like Cap in the comics is a lot more of what Cap in the movie says he is, but like actually follows through on it. But then there are just times where I'm like slightly bored because of that. It's like, okay, like I get that you're good, but you're just a little too good. to be interesting. Like obviously we need more people like that in real life. But
I'm looking forward to the channel. Tom says there's a busy schedule over the summer. Charlie's here. Hello, Charlie. Maggie says Natasha's the best person to be friends with all of them, and I do agree.
Yeah, I also like that Natasha, like especially her decision making in Civil War, where it's like she's friends with everyone and she understands where they're all coming from, and she makes her own decision based on, and it happens to align herself with one of the two groups. But honestly, I think if the two guys weren't being stubborn idiots, she would have been like, if I thought you guys were going to actually listen to the third option, here's the one that would have avoided the Civil War.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I know when male idiocy is like large and in charge, and I just.
Well, I mean, Natasha has constantly had to work on having a moral code of how she can live with herself. And
due to her early childhood trauma being in the Black Widow program.
Read in that ledger.
So we see where the functional side is of like, how do you cope and exist in this world? And then we see everyone else who's like, I'll figure out my morals when the situation happens. And that is never the right way to do it.
Yeah, that's not how you want to do it.
I also feel like
always Vision regret it.
And then Vision is like, has his morals, and then you take WandaVision and like you start to do some stuff there. And I like that you have all these different degrees of people who are like morals above everything and like ignore the nuances of situations. And then there are people who are like, oh, every situation is nuanced. It's like, well, yes, but like you should still have a moral compass. You know?
You need to know what you are comfortable, what edge you are comfortable going to and what you're not. Because you still have to live with yourself afterwards.
Yeah, and that's where the best storytelling comes in, because whether or not a friend is someone who pushes you to that moral precipice, and like, do you go over or do you stick to your guns, or an enemy, like either way, the most interesting stuff is when you're like, this is someone's moral compass, which means they're not going to do this. So what if they had to do this? Would they do it?
Yeah. And that makes for great drama, but these people don't even know what that is.
I agree with you.
I mean, like, that was my problem with Tony, is Tony's very much of I will take all the bad deeds I've done, but I cannot take any of the positives I've caused. And it's okay, you're totally missing how morals work.
Mm-hmm.
You take them all in together. Versus Cap is very much I only take in the good. I don't look at any of the bad I've caused.
Yeah, I think
it's cherry picking.
I feel like Tony is faster to start picking up the good stuff than Cap is the bad stuff, in my opinion. But yeah, you can't ignore one side, no matter what it is. Because, yeah.
I agree.
Okay, mentioning Agent Carter.
By the way, hi CB. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, we were just diving straight into all the
deep end.
Yeah, I think Peggy Carter was the best of Steve Rogers, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I really was surprised rewatching this week, just watching Avengers movies, and really seeing Steve through these and seeing Steve's takes a dark turn in these, particularly between Civil War and Age of Ultron, or maybe it's the other way around, but
it's the other way around.
Okay. But Steve Rogers all the way through, was it Infinity War is the first one? Yeah. Right. Of the two.
Infinity War and then Endgame.
That Steve has really taken a ends justify the means sort of approach. And we see that with even down to not telling Tony about what Bucky did.
But I think it comes down to Bucky, because he's Bucky was the only one who stuck up for me at that time. So he has this loyalty to him, which is good, but he puts that above morals, or his only moral in his head that he's acting towards, or what he thinks he's acting on, is loyalty. But by being so loyal to Bucky, he's being disloyal to every other friendship he's formed since.
Yeah, he's really saying, oh, all my other friendships, they were only in passing because Bucky wasn't around. And versus he could have told Tony at many points about, look, you need to know about the Winter Soldier program, and that is literally how your parents died. Hydra had sent one of the Winter Soldiers, and that particular Winter Soldier was Bucky.
Yeah, and I had no idea for a very long time about this, so I wasn't keeping it from you, but I found this out, and I think you should know.
And it's Tony, I've taken you to the desert, so if you want to beat me up for the fact that I know this and I'm telling you, let's get it out now so that we don't, accidentally destroy half of Manhattan. Let's just do it here. Just start wailing on me. But no, he did not want to go to this trouble. He did not want to deal with this of Tony would need to process. And the way Tony processes, again, I'll bring out my education program credentials here. Tony is definitely a kinesthetic learner. Someone who learns through physical activity. So Tony processes his emotions through his physical behavior, and that is how he's able to work out his emotions, is by physically expressing them. But yeah, he would need, essentially a safe space, a sandbox, if you will, to get it out.
Sandbox in the desert.
Yeah, that's what I'm take him to the desert. They crap out there. Now, there's probably some environmentalists that are no, don't ruin the fragile ecosystem. And I don't mean that let's just ruin a fragile ecosystem. And maybe it's just as well they went to, an Arctic desert. Hence, that is what Siberia is. Go do it there. But still, if Steve truly had been a good friend to Tony, as Steve claimed to have been before Civil War, then he would have been Tony, we need to go someplace. I have news for you, but I cannot tell you till we are somewhere you can freely express your emotions.
Oh, I'm seeing comments, and I got comments on the comments. So
okay. So yeah, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, it's just
no. Okay, so Stevie said Steve becomes Dumbledore in a way. And I actually disagree, because I think that Dumbledore knows that he's imperfect, and it's only because we're reading it through Harry's eyes that we idolize him. And then at the very end, he's I think he says it a bit earlier before he dies too, but these hints that people who seek power are not the ones who should be trusted with it. And I learned that, but you're good at it because you have never sought it, but you're good at it, and people need you to be good at it. And, and then we find out his time with Grindelwald and all these things. But yeah, he went on a power trip, and things could have ended in a very different way. But Dumbledore has never moved away from Grindelwald, because he realized that was a bad part, that he was had so much power for lust and not necessarily for the right reasons, that he stepped away from it, which makes him very good, and also can acknowledge that he has done bad things. Whereas we said that Steve can't acknowledge the bad stuff that has come from his actions. And I think it's a perception thing, but if we're going to talk about the character themselves, is that Dumbledore has more self-awareness than Steve does until much, much later. And that is
in fairness. Dumbledore is way older. Well, actually, I guess you could make an argument that Dumbledore and Steve are approximately the same age. However, in years lived, because Steve was under the ice, unconscious for many of those decades. So I don't really count that.
I don't either. I agree with you.
that, like Dumbledore literally had decades of experience on Steve. And so maybe that's where some of that came from. And maybe not. Maybe it's just more of Dumbledore's personality versus Steve.
But like the thing is that he was a teen, or like a tween, maybe even when he first met like Grindelwald, and then they had like their summer or whatever, and then a few years later, when they're young men, they have their falling out. And like obviously, grief I think is a very powerful teacher, and it might have made Dumbledore grow up faster even than that. But I do feel like that. Probably around the time that Steve went into the ice age-wise is around the time that like Dumbledore stepped away from Grindelwald. So I do think that he has a leg up on being able to recognize his weaknesses.
I would agree.
This is not an anti-Steve Rogers party.
Look, I love me some Chris Evans, y'all. Turns out there is a Chris I like. And it is my sweet little Chris Evans, the himbo who reads philosophy.
You don't like Chris Pine?
No.
Pine, not Pratt. I'm not talking about Pratt.
Sorry. I thought you said, yeah.
No. No. We don't like one of the Christies, but I like Chris Pine. I know he's on Marvel, but I'm just saying.
Do you hear how difficult this is with the Chris talk? Like... I'm teasing. Anyway, Kat says, by the way, hi, Kat. I feel like Tony would have helped had he known. He would have drowned himself in a mending and then been like, let's fix the brainwashed best buddy. And I agree. I agree with what CB said right before that. If Steve had told Kara or Rhodey and like helped, of like, we got to deal with this together. Now that we have this knowledge, it's not fair to keep it from Tony, but also it's going to be so hard for Tony. We have to help Tony. It would have been so much better. And I'm like, this says so much about Steve, of like, he's afraid of this kind of conflict from Tony, and it still happens. It's like, how they say we make our own prisons? The fear that we have creates the prison we are trying to avoid anyway. Of like, I really felt like this thing that Steve was trying to avoid, Steve kept wanting everyone to just get along. And so Steve takes a lot of ends justify the means philosophy approach to dealing with a lot of the Avengers and other characters. And it still all fell apart, Steve. It still fell apart, and people had to get pardoned and get paroled. It's still not cool.
He also, like, he goes off and does his own thing when accusing Tony that, like, oh, if you were a team player, none of this BS would happen. It's like, okay. Maybe that's true, but then it would also apply to you.
Yes. And, Maggie says, Wanda is an interesting character. She and her brother were basically terrorists, manipulating people into killing like it was nothing. And then she blows up a building and has a breakdown. I think it more says a lot about how Wanda was always in essentially a fragile state.
Although that does bring up something I wanted to get to about Avengers Age of Ultron, and that is
wait before we go there, sorry, I'm still thinking about the like Snape not telling Harry that he was the one to do the Voldemort thing. I do think it is different because Steve is harboring a secret about someone else doing the thing, and it's not like Snape obviously has a lot of complicated feelings about Harry because he was in love with Lily and hated James, and and he did this thing, but now he's a like triple agent, and he's working both sides, and he's doing all these things that are like helping Harry, but obviously he hates Harry and makes Harry's life miserable. Like, I don't think it's the best comparison, but I'm trying to think of another one that would be better. But yeah, it's like, this isn't my secret to tell, but there were ways that to do it without screwing up either of his friendships, and he just didn't try.
Well, I mean, that one we see, like, Dumbledore had opportunities and never brought up with Harry. Never tried to ease Harry into the hidden history of his own past. We saw Dumbledore literally keep all of this away the entire time. And like, no, it doesn't matter if he knows, so why would we try to tell him or bring him in? The very much seeing Dumbledore saw Harry as a tool. He was always a tool.
And so he treated him like an object rather than a person, with thinking, feels, and I feel like that maybe that's the connection of like, in some ways, Steve treated Tony that way. Of, you know, it's not going to change the past, so why should I tell you? Like, because I am a human being and I deserve to know the truth about things that are important to me. My parents and their fate matters.
But also, I think, I guess this is going to be giving Steve a little bit more benefit of the doubt. He doesn't, still bad at choices, but I think actually I've always seen it more as a fear thing that Tony could go lose it again. And the last time, like, he tried to do something, created Ultron, you know, and it's like, that was bad on its own. But like, and that was him being too logical. But if he goes off the rails emotionally from this news, the Avengers are going to fall apart and we need the Avengers and blah, 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 blah. And I think it's a lot of fear on Steve's part because he knows that Tony is a human with emotions and is going to react badly, that he doesn't want to deal with it. Yeah. Which is not the right answer either. But I think it's actually less to do with the fact that he sees Tony as an object without feelings and more that he sees Tony as a person with a lot of feelings.
I think like what I enjoy about these sort of ensemble stories is it is an opportunity to talk about moral philosophy. And everyone thought moral philosophy was a very boring subject. I know I certainly grew up with, anytime I had broached this subject with other people, they're like, oh, moral philosophy, hard ass, boo, boo, boo. And then The Good Place came along and made it cool. So I'm very grateful to The Good Place for helping make it more acceptable to everybody. I know some people were always cool and into moral philosophy, or at least the debate of it. But what I like about ensemble and multiple POVs is, since you have multiple people that you as the reader get attached to or can get attached to, then it's like you're rooting for people. And it's like, no, you need to treat them better. No, you need to treat them better. And I think that's really important, since what do readers mostly like? I mean, readers get a lot of enjoyment out of reading, sure. And that is very important. I absolutely agree. But you know what readers also get out of reading? Living other lives. Living other experiences. The brain can't tell the difference between you experiencing life for yourself and reading it in a story.
There's a writer who was... now I'm going to forget whether or not he was a speaker at NerdCon Nerdfighteria 2017, or if he was part of Hank Green's An Absolutely Remarkable Thing book tour. I think it was NerdCon Nerdfighteria. But anyway, he's a friend of John and Hank Green's, and he's a writer, and he came out with a book, and I'm now blanking on the name of the book, but he also wrote one of the songs on the Hamilton mixtape that, like, you know, came out after the Hamilton musical, and it was other artists tackling the songs and reimagining them or whatever. And he had said that he finds that writing is and I'm going to misquote him and it's going to bug me so much, but he called it a act of radical empathy, writing, and I think reading too, obviously, as you just said. And I love thinking about that because it's true. It's, you know, we get to go on adventures that are impossible because we don't have like people with actual powers like are described in Harry Potter or the Grishaverse or all these other things. But we all make choices and have friends and family and people who withhold things from us or try to manipulate us, and enemies and things like that, even though, you know, hopefully most people aren't actually trying to kill them on a yearly basis. Although it is nice that Voldemort waited until the end of the school year every time.
Yes. I think I agree with you. Like, I have lived at least 100 lives in my lifetime just by being so involved in various books and book series. And it has felt amazing and horrible and crushing. And I've certainly mourned the death of so many characters, not my own, as well as a few of my own that I had to kill off. Because it was like, honestly, when my mother died, I knew she, I had been dealing with her death for several years before she actually died. So when she died, it was like sad, but like I have wept openly over various characters. First character I ever cried over was the death of Beth March from Little Women.
That killed me.
And every time they actually show it in any of the Little Women movies, it's just like the good one dies.
I think though that's like important because like that's, I don't know. I feel like it
was important for me because it gave me a taste of grief, but like where I could have even, an easier time emotionally, distancing myself from it when I needed to. But so that later when grief would come, I knew what grief would feel like when my mother was dying, when she had pancreatic cancer for 2 years. I was already sort of familiar with grieving the death of several different characters from different books. So it kind of crutched me through the process of grief before she died. And then for the years afterwards, because really the first 5 years after Mom died, it was a wild ride of grief, but in a strange way. And I would only have understood that because I had essentially gone through this process with several characters. And even in the stories, some of the stories would help process grief, like where the other characters are processing grief. So it taught me so much on how to like survive and hopefully thrive. So yeah. Maggie said I agree with Zara because I think Steve didn't want to tell Tony because he knew Tony would have juvenile response and overreact, and that's what Tony does, overreact to any emotional event trauma.
I'm going to defend Tony here because I don't think his reaction, what Tony wound up doing / what Steve feared Tony would do, because let's be real, Tony didn't disappoint Steve, but Steve could have taken an option that might have not led to that outcome.
Yeah.
I don't think that's juvenile or overreacting. Finding out that your parents, who you had like a very rocky relationship with, and then never got to resolve because they died unexpectedly, you find out that they were murdered by the best friend of someone that you've come to count as your ally, even if you don't like each other that much, because he's like, I still want to punch you in your perfect teeth and all these things. And, just the sniping that goes back and forth because neither of them can recognize each other in the other person until like way further down their character arcs. I don't think that's juvenile. I think that's a traumatic revelation that adds to a trauma that an emotional trauma he already had with his like father, basically putting his inventing in front of his son, a relationship with his son, and then his mom being like distant, not because she's trying to, but like because she doesn't really know how to bring everyone together and doesn't want to get in the middle of it either. He grew up emotionally stunted, and thankfully he has Rhodey and Pepper to like call him on his bullshit. But it like as an adult, and that's, as we get to know him and stuff. But I don't think that in that situation, anything that he does would be overreacting.
Well, I think also Tony was definitely reacting to a sense of betrayal from Steve.
Yeah.
Of like, you've been exclaiming and insisting for like all these years that you're such an upstanding person. And here you lied to me. You openly withheld information from me. And
Harbored a murderer.
You obfuscated it. You said, oh, you could trust me. And you literally went behind my back and did things I cannot trust. I think a lot of it also was just a reaction to the betrayal. I think Tony would have had a much smaller emotional reaction to, if it had simply been like Pepper, Rhodey, and Steve out there somewhere, maybe the Arctic desert, like, all right, Tony, we have something to tell you. And we've given you this mountain to destroy. And we will be here with sandwiches and coffee, or whatever.
We will be on the other side of the mountain because there is a chance they're going to try and deck Steve, and we kind of need him. And you're going to realize that you need him after you get this out. So we're here to support you, but we're going to be out of firing range.
Right. Something
for our own personal safety.
Right, but something like we've worked with people and we have an idea of how you can, like, again, because Tony's a kinesthetic learner, and for him to process a bunch of these very intense emotions, he's going to need to physically behave in an intense way in order to help him emotionally process. This is how kinesthetic learners often experience it. That's why, like, often kinesthetic learners, when they feel intense emotion, will go like dance, or they will go running, or do other physically strenuous activities that match how they feel internally, emotionally. It is a way for them to process those feelings through their body. That's how kinesthetic learners are. So CB says, I personally would put Tony and Steve in a wrestling ring while Pepper and Rhodey are on commentary. Okay. I would.
Kat's comment underneath that too, though, is I agree with both of these things.
Oh, let's see, and also let's be honest. If Tony was trying to kill Steven or Bucky, they'd be dead. I agree. I know Bucky definitely was not interested in living at that point where, you know, the Steve, Bucky, and Tony are having their thing out in Siberia. Like, Bucky was definitely, truly, I would say, in the depths of depression at that point.
I think Bucky would have been okay with dying for, like, his crime, even though even though they all understand that, like, at some level, even though obviously Tony is still, like, acting on emotions mostly based on the betrayal by Steve, of where it's like, yeah, he was brainwashed and, like, he wasn't himself, but he still committed the crime, and you're protecting him over this friendship that I thought we had. But yeah, I think Bucky would have been fine with dying at that point, but Tony wasn't trying to, because he knew that, like I don't think he wanted to get, like, to completely separate, because he also knew that, like, the Avengers need Steve too, and like that they work as a team and stuff. But his point is that, like, you broke my trust, so we don't have a team.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know I do not handle betrayal well. Oh, I feel so wounded when somebody betrays my trust. It's like, truly, and like, back to, oh, well, yes, autism always shows up here. Of, like, Tom and I have a gift that we literally use for, like, anytime I feel betrayed by someone, where somebody has definitely lied to me or somehow betrayed my trust, is the it's the gift from Firefly with Alan Tudyk, with the two dinosaurs, curse your sudden yet inevitable betrayal. And that is, like, what we said to each other. This is how, you know, I feel about betrayal, of, like, you know, because I also liked how Doctor Who dealt with it, where, you know, Clara essentially tries to trick the Doctor into finding a way to bring Danny Pink back. Spoiler. It's been, you know,
I think you're supposed to say spoiler and then say the spoiler.
No. It's been so many years. Y'all are going to be
joking. I'm joking.
You're going to be okay, I promise. But, you know, and you know, he's like, you lied to me. You betrayed me. She's like, I did. Aren't you mad? He's like, of course I am mad. But now we're going to go see what we can do to find Danny Pink and bring him back to life. Of, like, and I'm like, I appreciated that kind of addressing betrayal as well. Of, like, I love it when characters have moral conversations. Of, when you love someone, even when they betray you, you don't stop loving them.
But also just, like, the diet, like, you know, you're coming from the autism, which, you know, and then I'm someone from PTSD, depression, anxiety, potentially ADHD as a kid, and supposedly grew out of it according to my doctors. But I'm like, I don't know. I still think I might have.
Yeah, that's called masking. You've got coping skills.
I'm here to tell you that what we know of the brains do not grow out of ADD.
I know. Yeah, that's
brains just get more developed and have an easier time masking, so it's less exhausting. Yeah. But it is still exhausting.
I think like, that's what I think, but, like, I haven't been able to convince a doctor yet, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm functioning right now.
I will say,
and if that part became really, really, like, disruptive, then I could, my doctor would be like, okay, then come back to me and tell me. Not the point. So there's, for people who don't know, there's this thing called dialectical behavior therapy, and it's kind of like CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, but it acknowledges that, like, just changing your thoughts to, like, completely reject something doesn't work. Whereas you can think something and feel something, and they might be, like, at odds, but they can both exist at the same time, and that's uncomfortable. But if you learn to like be okay, like recognize that discomfort and then and have skills to calm yourself down enough to be like, this is how I feel, this is how I think, they might not match, this sucks. But now that I have a more level mind, what can I do that's like the best way to move forward? And
I think that's a very practical approach.
Yeah, and everyone could probably use with that therapy.
Yeah, I think not just people who are in a crisis. I think, you know, I think it's just a good coping skill, quite frankly, to learn these.
It is a good coping skill.
I mean, like, that is my opinion. As somebody who at 19 went to a psychotherapist, she's like, why are you here? Do you have something going on? I'm like, no, I need coping skills. The ones I learned growing up are not helping. I cannot go into adulthood like this. This is, I can barely keep a job and pay the rent. And she was like, fascinating. I mean, she's like, I don't normally take individuals. She normally did family therapy. But she saw me long term, like over a year, just because she's like, you're the most interesting person.
Okay, hearing you say long term and then say over a year, and I'm like, oh, that's short term, honey.
I normally, like, if she saw an individual, it would be only for like 5 sessions. She did not.
Okay.
She did not see individuals except for like short triage situations. And so, like, yes, for her, this was actually quite a long-term thing. Okay. I was like, I'm just here to learn skills. I'm not here to talk about my problems. She's like, oh, you're adorable. We're
going to talk about your problems too.
Yes. And we did do like some rapid eye movement therapy and things that actually were very helpful for my PTSD. But anyhow, back to the chat is having such a wonderful time. Let's see.
Maggie's saying Tony needs therapy.
Eva's here. Hello, Eva.
Hey.
And then Kat, if Tony wanted to, he'd have taken over the world already. He just is a genius. He gets distracted by new ideas and tech. I mean, I can definitely relate to that experience.
Well, I don't think he ever wanted to take over the world. I think he was like obsessed with inventing and technology and trying to solve the world's problems.
To play with toys. Yeah.
And you know, after the Sokovia incident, he takes it a little bit too far and creates Ultron. Good intentions.
Another super bot.
Yeah. Road to hell is paved with good intentions, and Tony has a ton of them, and yada, yada, yada. But he needs therapy. But Maggie, I feel like you're being a little too punitive of Tony.
So CB says, I do not handle betrayal well, and if you break my trust, hell mend you, literally, because
I'll never, I don't know.
I will never trust you again. Spoiler, it's kind of like the scene in Little Women where Amy burns Joe's book in revenge because Joe won't take her to the opera, and then Laurie and Joe go skating and Amy falls to the ice. I know. At the time when I read that, I was like, Amy can burn in hell.
Here's the thing. I can't remember who the YouTuber was. There's a video called In Defense of Amy March.
Because somebody's got to come to her defense.
No. And it's a really good video. And it's actually someone who's also made a lot of videos about Shadow and Bone recently, too.
I'm not saying, like, that Amy doesn't deserve some defense. Number one, her age and impulsiveness.
Yeah.
And number two, sisters do crazy. Family, like, we are family. Every family can get messy when the emotions get messy. It's just how it is. Like, I've certainly said to Tom, like, I cannot believe you betrayed my trust again. You know, on the other hand, it did not stop me from loving him. It did mean I'm going to need a break and don't talk to me for several days, if not longer. And then, you know, there are things that have happened in our relationship where I'm like, I'm going to keep bringing this up till I feel better. 10 years later.
I am so mad at Amy for doing that, and I agree with Joe, and like she was in the right, and it was all these things, but like someone behaving badly doesn't make them a bad person, and I think you can punish someone for their bad behavior, but when it's so clear that there's a psychological component to it, I think we shouldn't just punish the person. I think there are certain politicians right now who are taking it too far the other way and being like, oh, we need to like save everyone's mental health without dealing with the fact that like X person committed a crime. There still needs to be consequences.
consequences. I agree.
But it's yeah.
But yeah, of like, let's understand like what are the contexts of whatever the crime that was committed. Whether, it's a personal crime in a family, like you broke my heart, or more. By the way, a bookish obsession reminds us here, hello dear, this is your reminder to hydrate, save your work, posture check, stretch, etc. because you deserve the self-love. And if no one's told you yet, I'm proud of you. Thank you, sweetheart. So on that note, how about we do a 10-minute bio break for those who maybe need a little extra time to hydrate, stretch, get a snack. My snack today Tom made me is homemade milk and butter bread with a little bit of cream cheese and strawberry jam on top.
That sounds delicious.
Because my tummy wasn't feeling well, and so Tom made me the thing that makes me happy, which is homemade toast with cream cheese and all the goodness. Hello, Kelly. So let's do a bio break, y'all, and we will meet you back here in a moment. I'm going to find the video.
Let's all.
Beep, 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 beep. Yay, we made it. Yay, go. Did everybody get to do the things, the snacks, and the what have yous?
I'm still crunching on the remains of my snacky snack.
I agree with Carrie that ice cream bar or ice cream snack looks so good.
It's an ice cream cone. It's a Skinny Cow. And my mom used to have it a lot. And my grandma used to have a different one when I was growing up, and I don't have that. But they're just so good. And I'm lactose intolerant and should not be eating them. But like I've tried like non-dairy ice cream, and I'm like, I'll take the pain.
I have a friend who can't really handle that much dairy, and I think they like this ice cream that's like made out of cashew milk.
Well, okay. Here's the thing, also, is that I'm allergic to nuts, even though no test actually shows it. I feel my throat close. If I can feel myself not being able to breathe around nuts, I'm allergic to nuts. I don't care what
I would agree. Like, you don't need someone to validate you. You're like, I know
I don't need you to validate the fact that I'll start being unable to breathe well, and then find out that there were nuts in the vicinity. Not even like seeing the nuts and then being like, oh, like it's a psychosomatic reaction. No.
No. That's your body telling you.
So there are lots of like non-dairy substitutes where I'm like, cool.
Let me ask you then, just because I am like a foodie and I love food, how are you with chickpeas?
They give me a stomach ache, and that's because of FODMAP.
Yes.
Which, if you don't know FODMAP, it's like there are 6 different types of sugars or whatever, and how the body breaks them down. And what you do is you eliminate all of them, and then you introduce each group back to see what F's up your system. And the answer is it's kind of all of it. So like so there are certain things that I just avoid altogether because I'm like, it's not worth it. And now that I know that that's one of the things, and then there are other ones where I'm like, okay, I know it now. Do I care? Is the question.
I mean, what is up with people who cannot handle lactose that are like, yes, I will still eat it. Like,
well, okay, here's the thing. I feel like I have yet to meet someone who is lactose intolerant and cares and like actually cuts out lactose completely because stuff is just so good. Whereas there are people who are allergic to like all forms of dairy, and then they have to. Like I haven't met someone who's allergic to all kinds of dairy who has been like, yeah, screw it, like for certain things. But if you're lactose intolerant, I feel like a lot of people are like, am I? Yes. Am I still going to do the thing? Also, yes.
oh, well.
Oh. All right.
It's just me.
I heard it for a
Sorry
moment.
for that tangent.
No. I'm always fascinated by other people's dietary needs since I can't handle Red 40.
I don't know what that is.
Red 40 food dye.
Oh, okay.
It's
I know that was like a whole, like what Whole 30 is. I was like, is that another?
Is that like is that a whole like you can't handle a whole diet? Like if only. The Red 40 food dye means I won't, if I have any amount, I won't sleep for days. Turns out that has something to do with the ADD, ADHD. That something in the neurology makes me sensitive to Red 40 food dye specifically. And so like I can't enjoy any of my favorite orange sodas because they all use Red 40 now. They didn't all used to, but now they do. And like I can't.
Is it like manufacturing because it's cheaper for them or something?
Yeah, it's a cold derivative, and it also humans really like the color, the look of Red 40 food dye. So they even use it in like Pillsbury white frosting. Mm-hmm. Because it's white.
Oh, I had heard of that. Okay. I was like, why is this not a new fact to me?
Right. And so, like, I won't sleep for days. My muscles all ache the whole time. And the only way I found to get it out of my system is to eat literal heads of romaine lettuce.
Romaine lettuce?
Yeah. Like, I can eat it.
What did you do? So what did you do? What was it that there was some like disease that was like on romaine lettuce for a bit, like a
like
year or two.
Oh yeah.
I had to be super careful, because I don't want to. I don't want that. Yeah, I actually found I did not know I was sensitive to, since you can't be allergic to a coal. It doesn't have protein. But I found out by accident I was sensitive to Red 40 food dye. I went on a weird diet for a week, and the diet was called "I will only eat what my dog will eat." So, because my dog, my miniature dachshund, she would I saw that dog. She would go snuffling in kitty litter boxes, and yet she would not eat anything from Sonic. And I thought about it, and I was like, look, if she eats cat poo, but she won't eat Sonic, maybe A, I should stop eating Sonic. And B, maybe I should see what else she won't eat. So for an entire week, I literally offered her every single thing I ate or drank before I had it. Like if it was like a coffee, I just take a spoon.
She's your food taster.
Huh?
She's your royal food taster.
Yes. And anything she would sniff and turn her nose up. I mean, again, a cat poo eater was like, no. Then I'm like, okay, whether I want it or not. And what I found was by the second day, I slept like a baby. For the first time in 20 years, I slept like an innocent baby. Oh, the deepest asleep. The moment my head would hit the pillow.
But you slept like a non-innocent baby? Because
there's some evil babies, I'm just saying. As an
exhausted baby. You slept like an exhausted baby.
The moment my head would hit the pillow, I would be gone for 8-9 hours. And it was the best restful sleep ever. I was so that was by day 3, I was like, look, there's something on this. I'm going to keep doing this for a week and see what happens.
By the way, she would literally lick the ketchup off the Sonic fries.
But she wouldn't eat the Sonic fry itself. She would eat the Hunt's ketchup, because they give you the packets, right? And I put the little ketchup
but I normally just skip ketchup if I'm getting fries.
Well, I'm just saying, she'd lick the ketchup off that came in packets from Sonic, but not any food Sonic prepared in the kitchen. And I was so for a whole week, I slept so good. And then I was well, let me start introducing the foods back and see what happens. So the first day, the first thing I had that she wouldn't have was orange soda. And that night I couldn't sleep. I was awake for 6 hours just staring at the ceiling in the dark.
Wait, you had the orange soda and you didn't have the orange soda?
I drank the orange soda.
You drank it and she did it.
And I drank it and then I couldn't sleep. And I'm like, okay, since that was the only thing she turned down on the first day, let me see what's in the orange soda. And it's a process of elimination of what else, trying to figure out cross-matching.
Yeah.
For the next week, everything she turned down, I'd look at the ingredients, try to figure out what does it have in common with the orange soda. And we figured out, it took a few days, but we figured out it was Red 40. And eliminating that from my diet changed my ability to sleep. It was finally, I could sleep like a human being, and it was wonderful rather than going 36, 48 hours before I would just collapse in exhaustion. I mean, this is no way to live a life.
No, it's not. And
so that was how I accidentally found out I was sensitive to Red 40.
I mean, I'm glad you found out, though.
But then there was a time where, what was it? It was I accidentally ate Cool Ranch Doritos. And I'm like, what do? I forgot for a minute. I just was so excited about Cool Ranch. And
understandable.
And the first day I couldn't sleep. But the second day we had pizza, which meant we had salad. Because I am that child from the lunch line in schools. And the school would always serve pizza Friday. And there would always be a salad. So I am programmed to crave salad when I have pizza. And I had a big old romaine salad the second night, and I fell asleep, and I was like, clue.
There's something.
And then the next time we were like, all right, let's find something Red 40 that I actually want to eat. I will eat it, and then I will eat
Test
some
the
romaine.
salad thing again,
right? And see if it really does. It'd pull it out of my system.
That's cool.
So anytime I go to a party or something where people have made the potluck, and I'm not sure what has Red 40, because again, you can't tell by looking at it sometimes. White frosting, why would white frosting have Red 40? So and the
food industry's answer is why not?
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Humans have an incredible sensitivity visually to the Red 40 food coloring. They have actually tested it out, and just anything with it humans will prefer. They're not entirely sure why. but it's that specific shade of red that humans are just like, I like that.
I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of the poison apple thing, where it's like, you're like, oh, it looks so good, which means it can't be.
Right. You know, a little too appetizing. I agree. So that was like, it's pretty much anytime I go to a party, it's like, do we have a head of romaine at home, or do we need to go by the grocery store and pick some up on the way home so that I can sleep at night? I mean, look, there are worse ways to compensate for accidentally consuming, you know. You mean you have to eat a whole head of romaine, you poor baby? Like, it's okay. It's the worst in the world. I just don't enjoy feeling cruddy till it gets, because it still takes a few hours to get out of my system. Apparently, I looked it up at one point at the history of romaine cultivation, and the Romani specifically cultivated romaine lettuce to deal with impurities that they were consuming. So not just worms and other things that they may have had to deal with in their gut, but also poisons. So that was specifically what romaine lettuce was cultivated for by the Romani for like apparently about 1,400 years. So it does its job.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, because I've tried iceberg, I've tried butterhead. None of them do quite as well. They do okay, but none of them work with the efficiency of romaine lettuce. So I'm just saying, if you have ever been concerned that you ate something that maybe your body does not like, try a head of romaine. Fun fact.
I mean, romaine lettuce is my favorite type of lettuce, and it always has been.
I really like it. Yeah, I like the taste of it. It's very nice. I like most of it except the little yellow parts, and Tom likes to eat those. So, you know, this works out well.
I think I just eat it all. I mean, also normally, to be fair, like I put dressing on myself. Like I don't just eat lettuce.
I will take a whole
for whatever reason,
and I will like dip
Glory
the top
has a
in
sensitivity. It's just for whatever reason, Glory actually has a sensitivity to the bitter agents in romaine, which tend to be at the base.
Yeah,
and so
that's why she avoids the bottom quarter of it. It works out. But anyhow,
so anyway,
CB. Let's see. Real quick, let's see. A Bookish Obsessions that I chatted. I'm in like 3 different live streams, so she's having a great time. Live stream hopping.
I admire people who can do that, because I'm like, I can't. Like, I'll put one on mute and like leave it up for watch time to support the person.
Yeah.
Like, I can't watch and pay attention to both. It's like once I'm out of one, I'm not coming back unless the other one ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if during the sprints, I'll go to another one, and then once they go to sprint, then I'll go to another. But like, I kind of miss out on conversations. So
yeah.
Megan is here. Hello, sweetie, back from Sedona. I hope it went well. CB says I can have cheese, chocolate, and butter, but not ice cream, custard, milk, and dairy rice pudding. I'm questioning a casein allergy. Very interesting.
I know that some people can do like ice cream and cheese, but not milk, and that's just because it's in different forms. It's something with the chemistry and stuff. Like ice cream is not treated a certain way, but it's like the way it's made. It does something to the lactose. Same with the cheese, and so I've always been better with cheese and ice cream than straight up milk, but they still affect me. I normally look at that and I'm like, I don't care.
I love your just, you know what? No fucks were given. So, I love it.
Like, look, there are a lot of things that as I've grown up, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about that anymore. I have more important things to worry about.
I love it.
Yes, priorities.
Maggie says they put Red 40 in bright blue food dye too. Yes. They put it in so many things. They even sometimes put it in red. I mean, white, not white.
They put it in red. Who knew?
But like,
such a smart.
However,
they put it in chocolate when it's not very good quality.
Yeah, they'll put it in chocolate pudding mixes when they don't put that much cocoa in, or not quality cocoa. And so that is one of our clues. If there's Red 40 in chocolate, it's a poor quality chocolate. Best to just avoid it.
I mean, I can't do chocolate pudding. I think it's something about the texture that like gets me. Just because there are certain things that like my body's like, I mean, there's nothing in it that's affecting you, which is you don't like the texture.
Well, also the milk, though. So it's probably not like your body's like, this one's not worth it. Move on. Yeah. Let's see. Maggie says I was in 3 streams until the rain started. Now I am just here. Aw. Sorry, you're still dealing with the rain, honey. Carrie is, yeah, like Tom said, babies don't sleep unless they're completely exhausted. I love their little just, you could move their arms. They don't even care. They're so asleep. I love it. I wish to sleep with that abandon. I don't do tomato ketchup. Did you know there's mushroom ketchup? I'm just saying, if you like mushrooms, it might be something to try.
And banana.
Well, except they add red 40 to banana ketchup, so I'm waiting for them to quit adding. Now, I can handle red 3, which is very popular in Asia, so I actually did okay when I lived in the Philippines. But and now I'm told red 40 has entered Asia, so that's the end of that game. Let's see. Everybody's stream hopping and having a good time. Maggie says genetically modified Cholula yeast excretes MSG, but is considered organic because it is a living thing that makes the MSG salt instead of chemical vat, but it causes the same side effect. Yes, carrots also contain naturally occurring MSG, so I do know of a few people who've had less than stellar reactions to carrots.
That's probably why I don't like carrots.
Something to think about.
No, because basically the only time I eat carrots is if they're in fried rice.
Yeah,
is when I'm already saying, yes, I know there's MSG, and I'm saying F it. But, normally I avoid things with MSG.
Yeah.
Because it triggers my migraines.
Yes. So, yeah, actually MSG is made by several vegetables. It's just carrots I always remember off the top of my head. Because I assume that's why I like them so much. My body craves MSG. When I don't feel well, MSG makes me feel better. So, but then again, that's because when I don't feel well, it tends to be because my muscles ache, and muscles make their own MSG.
Yes.
So I figure me consuming a little bit is what's helping deal with the muscle pain. But yeah, I'm definitely an advocate of listening to what your body needs. And again, if you have a sensitivity to MSG, please stay away from the carrots and the parsnips on principle.
I've never liked parsnips, so that's not.
They are literally allergic to everyone.
Everyone is allergic to wild parsnips. Everybody on the planet is allergic. Why did we domesticate it? How hungry were we? Let's not. Let's move beyond parsnips. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I feel like there are certain times where it's like, oh, it was desperation, and there are other times it's like, well, why not? It's like, well, that's not a good answer for certain things. Just because we can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. I'm just saying. Let's move on.
Story of humans.
Yeah. Maggie says baby was not sleeping was the first sign my eldest was autistic. If she got overstimulated, she wouldn't sleep more than 2 hours. Yeah. My mother said I was an insomniac from the age of 8 months on for the rest of my life. And so, it is what it is. I found melatonin, and avoiding red 40 has made a huge difference for me. But for every person, it's like, welcome to your personal journey. I hope you're ready for a ride. So
the answer is none of us are. None of us are ready.
No, none of us are. No, you're absolutely right. So, let's see. So, what y'all don't know is that when we go on bio breaks, that's when you see me talking to the wall. And that wall is called Tom has come in my room since his bedroom is down the hall. And since we're housemates. So Tom had come in to say, this is what I want to talk about when we come back from the break. Meanwhile, Zara was also messaging us what she wanted to talk about. And I'm like, yes.
Because we all think alike.
3 of a kind. And this is a great show. So chatting about multiple casts, ensemble casts and multiple POVs. And Tom, what was the part that you wanted to be sure to talk about as well?
This avoidance in the MCU and a lot of writing about everyone. PTSD is not a sign of weakness.
Oh, and how Marvel keeps claiming that
their avoidance of outright saying that PTSD isn't weakness, or their avoidance.
Oh no! The superheroes are immune to PTSD. Because PTSD is a sign of weakness. It's in their style of writing, their points of view.
Yeah.
People don't just get PTSD. Weak minds get PTSD.
which is a very ableist viewpoint.
Ooh, I could go off on that. If
yes. Hi, welcome.
But can I ask that we do the like ensemble cast first? Because if we get the same way with the morality train, I just like I want to get the storytelling in before we get into the
Well, don't worry. This one doesn't take nearly as long.
Oh, you don't think so?
No, yeah, I'm like
no, like this actually leads into the POV though, the multi POV and how to use it.
All right,
and that is so in Age of Ultron. We use Wanda to give all of them magically PTSD. Like that's literally how they are all responding is, they just keep obsessing about their worst idea of what will happen. And it keeps triggering them. That's what we actually see throughout Age of Ultron. Mm-hmm. And like Wanda says, that's why she let Tony get the staff, is because she knew he would be so obsessed, he would go make Ultron. And Marvel then tries to sort of retcon it in the next couple movies of, Wanda gave them visions of their future so that they would be distracted, because that's where Thor becomes obsessed with Ragnarok happening. Tony becomes obsessed with Thanos always coming to Earth. Cap is obsessed with, finding Peggy Carter, to be honest, and what does he have to do to go back to reach her? Yeah. And so they tried to do a little bit of retcon, but really it's like Wanda gave them PTSD, and then we never see them really go through therapy in Endgame or Infinity War. We finally see a little bit of therapy in Endgame, but then it's never discussed again. But instead, what we do get to see in Endgame, though, is the many different ways people handle grief, and what happens if you don't try to handle your grief.
You mean like where some people throw themselves in their work, like what Natasha did?
Or tries to essentially put themselves into dangerous situations, like Barton. Hawkeye goes in and just trying to attack dangerous people.
We did see Clara do the same thing in Doctor Who as well after Danny. Spoiler. I'm trying to be good.
I just want to clarify. Wanda doesn't give them PTSD. She traumatizes them. PTSD wouldn't actually come up until like they show signs of PTSD in reaction to the trauma she gives them. You can't just give someone PTSD. Sorry.
Well, that's just it. But like this is Marvel, because it's all this stuff so it's supposed to happen in their past that they are responding to of things that are after the fact. And it's like, it's magically because we had to overcome the superhero ability to just not be traumatized by anything. It's like, no, you're constantly traumatized. And none of y'all are dealing with it, and it just keeps building up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like Tony from the very start is just walking PTSD.
But anyways, let's go on to the uses of having a multi-point POV in a story. We get to see different ways of seeing the world, and that's really where Avengers excels. Is we get to have different characters verbalize our points of view and our perspectives. I mean, there's always the functional one, and that's Natasha throughout most of the movies to the last one. Of like, here's how you handle it. Like we see her.
Pass.
We see her.
We're just like that's.
What happened, Natasha? Oh, we have to get rid of her. That's why we need to make her so broken.
She's too functional. She's just too competent.
By the way, I found out that the person who choreographed the stunts for Shadow and Bone also choreographed the stunts for Endgame. And because I posted it behind the scenes, I was like, you're the reason my heart broke during that scene.
Well, if we want to talk about stunts real quick.
No. I'm not mad at you because you've created great stuff, and stunts are my favorite part of the behind the scenes of anything I watch. But damn you.
We're watching, what was it, the first Avengers movie? And Tom says, do you know why Natasha throws the chair leg that way? And I'm like, I've always wondered. I thought it was weird.
Like, instead of hitting the guy, she throws the chair leg behind him beside his face. When she's being, she's supposed to be...
Joss Whedon plagiarized himself from Buffy. From
like hardcore. Just really redid the exact same scene from Buffy.
I hate Joss Whedon. I love Avengers, and I love
but like that scene,
Empire Slayer, and I hate his cut of Justice League.
Yep. But this scene where she throws it, that's because in the original choreography, she stabs the guy, a la it's a vampire.
But she uses that chair, the same, like, he literally
just a backflip, all of it.
The whole thing, because I went and I watched it, like, it's on YouTube where...
Is there a YouTube side-by-side?
There is. I'll have to look to find the link, because, like, it's now been upwards of a week, and I've watched a whole lot of YouTube videos. But, yeah, there is a side-by-side, at least I found it somewhere. It might have been Vimeo, but somebody posted it up to show he copied it, like, beat for beat of himself, and I'm like, Westworld really goes over when you plagiarize yourself. It is possible to do it.
Oh, yeah. You're like in school, they're like, you can't self-plagiarize. And I learned that was a thing. And I was like, God damn. Hold on. I'm finding the person who posted the thing. Because they replied to my comment, like I said. So I'm just going to find that and pop that in the private chat so you can share it. Oh, God.
But yeah, like Avengers works and it's fun, and the reason why Thor is suddenly entertaining in Avengers versus the Thor movie, is we get this POV, and some characters are just good for bringing in a certain perspective and giving you a certain spice in that moment, but they're not going to be great for a whole story. It gets boring to follow this type of point of view.
I feel like Thor, for instance, is a spice. He's not really able to carry a movie as a character. I mean, again, we're back to the Chris's. A lovely Chris. Not one of the worst. But carrying a film by himself, he really needs, for instance, Tom Hiddleston, and frankly, he actually needs a whole ensemble cast to actually carry the movie well. So sometimes we have characters that we really like, but they are not necessarily characters that can carry a whole story by themselves. And that is where ensembles and multiple POVs can come in hand and really work out. Not everybody holds a main, what is it like? What do they call it? Main character syndrome or something? Not every character is that engaging and interesting. And that's perfectly fine. Like, I've always believed I was not a good main character. Because I'm always trying to take out conflict. I'm always trying to, like, smooth away. In real life, I do not like lots of conflict. I like to have peaceful home life. This has definitely caused problems. So, I always assumed I would not be a very good main character, because I'm always trying to dissipate the tension. I'm trying to, like, let's get it out in the open. Let's air out our grievances so we can move forward. And that does not work for main characters. Main characters need to kind of carry that tension for a while. I do not carry tension well.
Yeah. I think also, like, everyone is a main character in their own life because they're living it, but you're not necessarily an entertaining character.
Yeah.
Which is what you need in a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely know a few other people in real life who make much better main characters because they are messy, they love drama, and they don't mind dealing with, a lot of things going bad in a short time period and rolling with it. They handle it pretty well. I do not handle it gracefully. No. Carrie says, I remember seeing Thor in theaters, and when he kisses Jane's hand, I swoon because I'm that kind of sappy romantic. My friends, I was with just rolled their eyes. Oh, Carrie.
And also, it's what is your audience looking for and interested in? As again, what kind of main character do you need to have?
I think
to
also,
carry that tension.
If you're doing an ensemble, you don't want a bunch of them who are all like similar. Like what works is when they're different. Like you have friends, you have How I Met Your Mother, you have obviously Avengers. You have every found family trope. Like you. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a point of view of the villain, that can be done well. Sometimes, but they have to, like, they can't. That would hopefully force you to not have a 2-dimensional villain. But like normally, it's mostly just from like the heroes, unless you're Game of Thrones, in which case everyone's a hero and a villain. So like, whatever. And to me, my favorite part about a multi POV story, whether or not like you're actually in everyone's heads, or if it's like you have a few people who are kind of like the forefront people, kind of like Tony and Steve in Avengers, but then you know that everyone else like still is there present enough that like they have different opinions on the stuff, is that you can see like here's the situation, and everyone based on what they have come from and what they want, like what's behind them and what's in front of them, is going to react differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the coolest part in my mind. So I've only written romances so far, and the next book I'm writing is not a romance. It's actually it's going to be from one perspective and like an unlikable character. And I'm not even going to say anti-hero because I don't think he is. I think he's just an unlikable protagonist, which kind of scary to write. But you know, in romances, especially in the adult genre, and not so much in young adult, although I've done it for my young adult books too, is generally you write from like the male and female perspective. And one of my favorite parts in that is that you can have something happen and then just cut to the next person's point of view, and the scene keeps going.
Laura says it's also a balancing act of switching between groups, so we get the major POVs. Some films do it terribly. Cough, Suicide Squad, cough.
I would say that although that does kind of bring up just because you have an ensemble cast and an ensemble story doesn't mean that they all have to have equal time. I said like Thor is good for moments in Avengers and all the Avengers movie. He's not someone who needs to have, an eighth of the movie just devoted to him. Versus we've seen audiences and they do relate better to Iron Man and Captain America. So we want to have more of a story with them showcased.
Yeah.
And like, that's the other trap I see a lot of people when they're writing ensemble stories, is this need to like, equally give chapters to everyone.
Oh gosh, sometimes it feels very pedantic though, like like a sloth. You know, we're just gonna slog through this, and I'm like, why? I just need to know how this ends.
And that brings up another issue we had watching Infinity War, which was the editing and storytelling style, where so humans are our memory is mostly designed around space. Every location is a different memory space in our mind. So every time you change locations, that's a new memory. So like one of the tricks is, if you want to move a relationship faster, have dates that have multiple locations you go to, because you'll remember each location as a separate event. And in Infinity War, we switch so often between different locations that it becomes exhausting early on. Like we literally just get travel fatigue switching so many places. And the same thing Gloria had to complain about with Lord of the Rings, was the trying to keep all of the stories contemporary with each other, of what's going on at the same time, versus there's nothing wrong with jumping back in time to start another scene with a different group and then bringing them up to the current.
Like I find like doing like these very quick jump cut type scenes, it can be very disconcerting, and I have a hard time following the storyline when we just keep moving so quickly. Every few minutes it's a new scene and it's a new situation. Even when we're actually moving back and forth, if we're moving back and forth between more than two different scenes, though, I'm gonna get lost. I don't mean to. Even when I'm like I'm not playing any games on my tablet. I'm trying to focus. I'm still like, what is happening? So Tom found me the Red Book edit of Lord of the Rings, where somebody very nicely took all the director's cut, or took whatever. Anyway, they took Lord of the Rings, all three movies, and reassembled the scene so it's all like sectioned. So all the tree scenes are all together. all the Rohan scenes all together. So I could actually follow essentially these little mini storylines all the way through. And then the whole thing made sense to me because, the way the Lord of the Rings was originally edited, it's a lot of tiny scenes successively cut when in fact they are actually these quite long scenes, like 18-minute scenes that he just kept intercutting with each other. And I'm like, I love that as a salad. I do not like that as a movie. I do not want chopped salad for a movie.
You gotta give people long enough to like immerse themselves in what's happening and orient themselves, and to the point that like, okay, things are getting really intense, and then maybe if there's a moment where you're like, oh, like something goes wrong, and I'm not going to show you whether or not they can fix it because you're also worried about these other people who are fighting. So let's check in and see how they're doing, and then like, cut away before you see what happens and check back on the other. Like that builds tension. Yeah, but if you're just like, this person's fighting, this person's fighting, this person's fighting, this person's fighting. I'm like, I know everyone's fighting. Like, they're in the middle of a battle. I don't need a shot of every single section of the field for me to understand that people are fighting in places that I can't see right now.
Yeah, like, I don't need to keep, like, going in a carousel between all of these scenes as each scene unfolds, but, like, I don't get to follow it all the way through. Versus I have seen or read actually in books where you have a scene and where at a certain point in the scene, the characters are like, yeah, what's going on with such and such and so and so. And then the next scene is what is going on with such and such and so and so. And that felt intuitive and not jumpy or choppy. Because again, like the story follows a natural through line. But when it's just like a carousel, we just keep going all round and round. Really, like the way they did the final fight scene in Endgame is like, was this really necessary? Could we not stay with any fight long enough to see its culmination before we move on to the next? I felt like, if anything, it cut the tension for me, and I really wasn't emotionally invested in any of it. Versus if we had stuck with it, I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think they were trying to show everyone, and it's like, okay, like, yes, Ant-Man is funny, but like just show us the main of 6 Avengers, and even though they're broken up into different groups or they're doing one-on-one fighting, that's okay. But like, it's a callback to the fact that the original 6 Avengers were the ones who weren't invested, and like, you have I'm going to address that in a moment. Where
I was surprised that actually bugs me.
But like I don't need to see Ant-Man and Wasp try and get to the thing, or like I don't need to cut to them to be like, oh, we have another time machine after Steve said. Someone was like, that wasn't our only time machine or something, and I don't need to cut to them to be them being like, oh yeah, Cap, like we'll get there. And like, I don't need to hear that. Like, I don't need to see that. I don't need to hear that. We know that that wasn't our only time machine. And then someone who's flying, I can't remember who it says, is like, does anyone see a really like dinged up trailer?
Brown van.
Whatever hell it is.
Yeah, look for the van.
Yeah. And the point is like, okay, we know that it's here. We don't know where. And we need to get to it. We don't need to see these like essentially minor characters, even though that like they were some of the non-dusted ones and are responsible for like the time travel element in addition to Tony of the film. We don't need to jump to them. It's more interesting to see Spider-Man, even though he's not one of the original 6, going through everything, because every time he needs something to latch onto, and when everything is a moving target and there isn't a building for him to latch onto, and he's holding the gauntlet, so it's very, very high stakes, like that makes sense to follow him. But we don't need to see, Ant-Man and Wasp sitting next to each other and be like, oh, we got to find the thing.
Yeah, it cuts, the middle of that tension.
Yeah, it keeps cutting the tension rather than building up. And I have like literally stopped reading books because there was a fight scene that essentially was sort of edited that way, and I'm like, no, I can't.
I don't.
Or
think,
just skip ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, in my fight scenes, like, I stick to main character. Like, the way I described it earlier was, like, main characters doing stuff, and then, like, something happens, and tension. There's more tension to skip over to the other person to see how they're doing, you know? Or sometimes I've written a whole fight from one character's perspective and then they kind of crash, either emotionally, physically, both. And then, because sometimes it's more interesting to see the reaction to that person crashing and like their loved one trying to figure out how to care for them. Sometimes I switch to that, but it's like, just because you have two doesn't mean that you need both sides of every single moment.
Yes.
Although that can be fun.
It
like
can
I said earlier.
be, but sometimes it really disrupts the flow. And at a certain point, like that is the point of the middle section of anything, whether it's a fight, whether it's a scene, that's where flow becomes important. Yeah. Style is part of flow. But that's what the Elements of Style was about. You know, the book was about, do not disrupt the reader's flow through a scene or through those pages. You want to keep their attention very, at that even keel, whatever that is. Even a fight scene has an even keel of tension or energy, if you will. And so chopping it up where you keep moving the scene around, but you're not keeping the energy consistent, it feels very disjointed.
There's this blanking on, oh my god, I can't remember the name of the movie, but Charlize Theron was basically a spy, and there were lots of clips about how it was like, it looked like this one track shot where she's in a room, moves to a different room, moves down a staircase, goes over a banister, and whatever, and it's like, it's a one shot, although there is a sneaky edit in there, which I found out, like, they're watching all the behind the scenes and stuff. And it works because there's flow. It makes sense that you go from one place to another, but you're not going to see, like, oh, this is where the fight is going to happen before it happens. Or, like, oh, these people are laying in wait, so we're going to show where they could be hiding before it becomes necessary. You know, like, you don't do stuff like that.
If you ever want to know how do you edit a fight scene, but also just how do you edit for connecting moments together, Google Jackie Chan fight scene design.
Atomic Blonde. Sorry, that's what it was.
Atomic Blonde. Because Jackie Chan, has been doing this for literal decades now. And he goes over, and one of the things he really pointed out in his fight scenes of why people tend to enjoy his fight scenes, besides, he puts in comedy, is that there's a couple little things he's learned over the years to always include, and you don't get a exception for it. And it's, you have to keep track of where the audience's eyes are going. So if the punch is going to the right or left on screen, the next scene, the point of interest has to be right here again in the same spot. You can't then reverse it and have it be over here. Your audience will not have had time to adjust. Also, you have to put at least 3 to 5 frames of when you switch over for your audience's eyes to readjust to the scene of what the new situation is. And he does it really well in illustrating how this works, but the same actually goes for storytelling. You don't just switch mid-scene to another situation and take off at full speed from that point. You actually have to kind of bring people up to speed with 2 or 3 sentences before the train's back at full speed, or else their minds kind of go, because you just hard switched rails. And that's what we're seeing here when we're talking about, like, in these fight scenes of they're hard changes. There's not smooth transition, versus if you have Spider-Man going between all these people, we can have these people talk when they're interacting in the scene with Spider-Man, and it's not a jerk change of thought or anything, because our brains are still following Spider-Man through the scene. But we've now just come across like Valkyrie, and we can have Valkyrie say a line right there. Even though we didn't see her a moment before, Spider-Man's now hanging on to her. Our brain's gone, thank you, Valkyrie, for being there. Versus suddenly switching it back to the ground, away from Spider-Man, we've got entirely different kind of movement, let alone fighting going on, and you kind of jerked around, and it is harder to keep track and keep in that flow as the audience.
I felt like the Spider-Man, the flow through worked until the whole female fighter so cringe, just disrupt.
Although they did that in real quick though, in Infinity War, I noticed they did a smaller version of that, and that felt very organic.
Right, because also though it didn't take away. It wasn't a stop to the action. If anything, it was like a Hail Mary. And it's like, we are outnumbered. And then it's like, but we have each other's backs. And like them working as like three women who have never met each other before, but are like, we are going to help keep each other safe. They just did it.
Yeah, that works. That feels organic.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop the action versus we literally stop the movie to let all the women get into the scene show up and show their face.
The only stop in Infinity War was like, why was she up there? Like it's a funny joke, and it makes sense. And it makes sense that Okoye, who's like the general, is like, what were we doing? Not having one of our best fighters fighting. Like why would you have the best fighter doing defense? That makes sense. Yeah. And because you also had like basically every Avenger coming to Wakanda, and the Wakandans being like,
we're used to dealing with things our own.
How many monks of time do they have to like just make portals right quick? Like, wait, what?
Yeah, and then with
I didn't see that many in the monastery. Is all I'm saying.
I keep wondering, where did all the spaceships come from? Like, I feel like that part was left out of. Wait, who has all these spaceships? Those don't look like Wakandan.
Yeah,
so what are those? Much to unpack.
But
question. Okay. So this is my opinion. Anytime we watch a movie and we're like, but why? This makes no sense. My answer is always cocaine. Not my cocaine. Their cocaine. I'm just saying everyone knows Hollywood has plenty. And I'm just saying that is like my answer in the 2020s of, but why did they do this? It made no sense. If anything, it's counterintuitive. It's counterproductive, blah, blah, blah. The answer is cocaine made it seem like a great idea at the time. I learned this after watching Blues Brothers for the third or fourth time and going, here's like a 20, 25 minute chase scene. And they destroy all this, and it was like it actually was a Guinness record for number of cars destroyed in one movie scene, kind of thing.
Wow!
And I'm reading the Wikipedia article on this, and it's and then I'm reading Carrie Fisher talking about the movie production had a little kind of bar for all the staff, everybody working on the set. And that there were just rails of cocaine every night. They went through so much. And I'm like, oh, is that why this seemed like a good idea? I understand in the writing process, you're like, sure, we'll put it in the script. But why would all the people go, yeah, let's keep destroying cars and make this scene so long? And then reading that, I'm like, because cocaine made it seem like a great idea to everyone involved.
The thing that bugs me the most is that not only does it break up the flow, but also you're getting this quote unquote female empowerment scene from a studio that refused to, give any actual real female empowerment. And it's like, oh, look, we did it. It's like, you did the bare minimum way too late.
Also performative. What was it, Tom? What it's called when businesses go, oh, Pride Month, but then the rest of the time
performative.
Oh, it's washing. There's woke washing. There's pride washing.
Yeah.
I feel like this is feminist washing of thanks, but you can keep that to yourself.
Yeah. I don't know
they keep
if
doing
you guys
these
watched Joan is in Trouble, but he reacted to it. When he commented on it, everyone like called him out for being like, everyone thought that his sarcasm was him actually being like anti-feminist because he didn't like the scene. And he's like, no, and then people in the comments are like, oh my God, you idiots. He's saying that like this is a stupid scene, and that if they actually wanted to empower their female characters, they had a lot of time to already do so.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You had so many movies you could have, but no.
Also, the thing about no rescue buildup, I think.
Yeah,
I think
again.
the brothers sometimes like they're like, oh my God, like let's throw in all these things for the fans, but like we can't obviously do all of them, so like let's just do it, and the fans who know will know. And it's like, but like, you can't just do that. Like it still needs to make sense to people who don't know that you like, you know, like it's one thing to have an Easter egg that is there and might go unnoticed by people. And then if you know, you're like in on a joke, and versus if you're throwing in this like Easter egg without any work for it to actually make sense for people who don't know that it's an Easter egg, you're just like alienating people.
I agree.
Who are like, I don't get it.
But also, apparently, the Russos have been having problems with the editing.
CB says exactly. I mean, if they were going to really do it, they would have done the whole training scene with all the female characters. Plus, the ending of Iron Man 2 suggests that Pepper is scared of heights.
I mean, like
someone can be afraid of heights, and then, like, I don't know, maybe she did stuff to, like, get over it, or, you know, like, and had to pep talk herself up to be like, we need to, like,
or finding out that as long as she has the boots.
Right.
And she's encased, it doesn't feel like she's actually outside.
And like, I know people who have fear of like heights on ladders and on roofs, but they don't have a fear of flying, or vice versa. People who have fear of flying, but they're fine on ladders. They're fine getting up on the second story.
I'm the first one.
Yeah, of like, people's fear of heights can be very particular. So yeah, I could see like her fear of heights is mostly scaffolding, which legitimate concern.
Don't talk about it too much, because I live in a city that always has scaffolding, and if I don't think about it, I'm okay. And sometimes if I think about it, I'm less okay.
But yeah, like I could like see where maybe Pepper doesn't have like a total fear of heights. It's just, and yeah, I could see where she really trusts Tony's tech, especially at this point where, you know, he's like on what, a Mark 87, whatever. But like that's, I could see that, but like again, there were all these opportunities to include more female characters in fighting, and they were like, yeah, no, we're just sticking with what we have, not even as a periphery.
And like one of the things Gloria would notice watching Endgame was all of a sudden we have whatever his name, Scott Lang, making movie references because they didn't have Spider-Man around. He's not made movie references any other time. He's not really a big movie buff, but all of a sudden
make him
he's
before
pitching Peter Parker lines.
You don't make him after. It felt very weird. Like suddenly Scott Lang's like, have you ever seen Hot Tub Time Machine? Have you seen Back to the Future? Like,
but it was also like lazy writing, because like those movie references are needed so that people can get on board with the time travel thing.
Yeah.
And yes, in a real life conversation, if someone's like, I invented time travel, and you're like, is it like this? And the person would be like, no, you idiot. It's not like this movie. But like, it's out of character for him to be mentioning all the movies. Yeah, and the movies that are being mentioned are for this reason, which, yes, it's a shortcut that we all use in real life. But use actual storytelling to explain your version of time travel, which they do later with like the Ancient One. And you know, you can have your issues with time travel, but at least they set down rules for it. And, you know, I haven't watched Loki yet, so I don't know how they've done it, whether or not they actually stuck to their guns on it. But, like, don't just throw out a bunch of movie references where, hey, people, if you haven't seen the movie, you're like, it's a time travel movie, and I don't get the reference. So they're saying it's not this, but I don't know what that means because I don't know what this is not.
I was just like, look, like with Scott Lang, who I could believe that he might bring up, like, have you ever read a book called H.G. Wells' Time Machine?
I read it. I hated that book. I'm just going to tell you.
But, like, where he's like, is it like that? Like, that I could believe. But, like, all these newer references, they're all movie references. And Rhodey's getting in on it. And I'm like, none of these characters have ever talked about movies. Let alone, their interest in, the best of the 80s and 90s kind of films. Because, like, these were always solid renters at our video store. And I'm like, when have they ever talked about this stuff? They've literally never made any references. This feels strange versus if they at least brought up, like, books that have time machine. Have you seen, have you ever read The Time Traveler's Wife? Is it like that, but with Pym particles? Like, at least maybe I might go, okay, he read a book in prison. I could see this.
Laura said, I figured Scott knew movies from being under house arrest for a couple of years, but, like, there's no lead up to it. The same way that there's no lead up of Pepper just appearing as rescue. Like, it's
when
not
I was under house arrest for several years. I watched a whole bunch of movies. He could have just said that, and then this would have felt like,
like they did no work. It's like you see the mask that oh my god, I'm now blanking on her name. Morgan, that Tony Hansen Morgan, and then you're like, oh, that's a foreshadowing, like, of her, maybe, or at the very least, rescue later on in the movie.
Like, right? Doesn't she play? She takes up Iron Man 3000 or something. That's why they keep referencing 3000 in it. I thought,
but it's like, it's not that it's unbelievable that it could have happened if they just done a little bit of groundwork, But for it to just be there, you're like, this doesn't fit.
It did feel very odd and forced and out of character. And I don't, even as a reader and a movie viewer, I do not enjoy it when it feels like they're forcing characters to do things or say things that just, there's no precedence for this. This doesn't seem part of their character or part of their experiences. So it just feels like, I hate when they do this. I feel like they're somehow betraying the character.
All right, should we take a little break?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
we'll take a 10-minute bio break, and we will stretch, and we will drink the things, and save the work, and we will do the things, y'all. It's going to be grand.
And we'll talk about how to improve these stories.
As soon as I find the right button. Beep, 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 beep. Stop that. Oh,
Thomas back.
Thomas back to you. This timer was made by Laura. Laura made this lovely purple timer. Much love to Laura. Anybody knows any good 10-minute timers out there, please let me know. I'm always on the lookout. Hello, Charlie.
I had a 10-minute timer, but it doesn't have my newest book cover included on it. So I never uploaded it to YouTube updated.
Well, if you do, let me know if you ever upload it. I'm always looking for 10-minute timers.
Cool.
I love variety. I'm a variety person. We are still waiting for Laura's puppy Roy to be allowed to cross borders. And then there will be a Roy 10-minute timer. He's so cute. He's what are those, the Madagascar cotton type dogs? They look kind of similar to the Havanese.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? Roy has his own Instagram account, y'all.
Okay.
If you just need adorable cuteness.
What is it?
Well, let's see. Because it's something with Roy in the name. Like Roy the puppy.
There it is. Writing with Roy.
Thank you so much, Laura. It is writing_with_Roy. Everyone show Roy love. It is. There are regular pictures and videos of Roy. He is the cutest puppy. He's so fluffy. I love it.
Following now.
Yes. We all need adorable, sweet puppy pictures and videos in our lives.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Instagram is has been randomly shadow banning me since I think the start of 2021. And it gets worse and then sometimes gets better, but it's never it's not normal, and it hasn't been since this year.
Wow.
But if for some reason you are actually able to view my account the way you're supposed to, which is just my name, Zara Hoffman, without a space, you'll see pictures of my dog there. I'm going to have to start posting pictures of my dog on my Ko-fi because I'm basically in the process of abandoning Instagram mostly for Ko-fi because Ko-fi is never good.
I had wondered why I wasn't really seeing much of you on Instagram posts, like in the feed, I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen your show up on stories.
Yeah.
With your sweet doggy, which of course I believe I've several times given you emojis of just.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm here for that is people's puppies, dogs, cats is literally how I got sucked into AuthorTube in the first place. Literally, Jenna Moressi's dog Butters is the reason I kept watching any video where she had Butters in the thumbnail. And so then it kept recommending Kate Kavanaugh's, anyone with Buffy or Zelda in the video. and then from there it was Jessica Williamson with her cat Merlin, anything, and that is how I am now in AuthorTube. It's because of everyone's pets. So this is what I say: keep bringing your pets. I'm here to see all the fluffy goodness. I love it.
I should have joined AuthorTube earlier theoretically because I was friends with Jenna Moresi and Jesse Elliott way closer to the start of their AuthorTube careers. And I don't know, I just never kept digging. And then pandemic hit and I was like, oh my God, all these people, what was I doing?
Yeah, I wasn't digging. It just, I would watch anything that had dogs or cats. Frankly, birds, anything, it's like, oh, do
bunnies.
You have bunnies? Oh, yes. I love videos where people show their bunnies. They'll just have a 2-3 minute bunny break or a cat break in the middle of their video. And it just so happened it was a bunch of AuthorTubers did this. And
which AuthorTubers have a bunny break?
Well, I know Laura has a bunny right now. But somebody had a bunny way back. I don't know that they're still on AuthorTube anymore. But this was at the early start of the pandemic that I saw that. And that is how I found out by accident about Jessica's the first write-a-thon, which was a 12-hour. It wasn't called write-a-thon back then, I don't think. But, they were doing all these live streams, and that is how I got sucked in. I was like, oh, I've written so much. This is wonderful. Can we keep going? And they were like, no, April's over. And I was like, well, if this is necessary, I'll start my own channel.
Good.
So that's how I got sucked in. And I have not really looked back other than to please pander for more animal pictures and videos. If you're making a video, can we just have a splice of 30-second, 1 minute just of your animal?
I had a vlog that I called the puppy vlog, and I think it was just clips of my dog, if not majority. Whereas back when I was doing vlogging more, I'd obviously have moments of Riley in every vlog. But there's 1 week where I was like, I don't feel like I did anything that I could film aside from her cuteness. So
I think that's good enough
on my YouTube channel.
I'm just saying, I think it's good enough. We all need some oxytocin. Or, you could always film the dog with a pen. A little paper. Hello, trying to do their planner.
She rips up paper. She's like a shredding machine with a wagging tail.
Charlie says, same, Zara. I'm watching Kate and Abby. I was watching Kate and Abby for years on and off when they were new to YouTube. Then pre-pandemic, I met everyone else. For me, it's the Cammy Cam because my cat's name is Cammy. Yes. Aww. I am here for all the Author 2 pets.
Here we go. Week 4 of NaNoWriMo puppy vlog.
Yes. I want to see everyone's birds, lizards, you name it. Fish. I will take fish. I will happily take fish. I love fish. Because I'm the kind of person that puts on the TV YouTube app and is watching aquariums around the world and just anything that they're live streaming. Let me just watch.
I normally prefer it to be a mammal.
I will take anything. I will take a snake in a hat.
Okay, that does sound cute.
Okay, because there's a whole what is it, TikTok? Snake TikTok? It's a lot of little pet snakes with outfits, and I am here for this. Thank you for posting the link, Zara.
You're welcome.
I will definitely enjoy. So, here we are in the third hour, ready to talk about how to fix all the good stuff. Well, the stuff that didn't quite work into good stuff.
Fix the bad stuff into good stuff, yeah.
Or at least the less than phenomenal stuff. Look, if we're in the middle of editing, it's not terrible because it's only terrible if you give up. Right?
That's true.
So I'm just saying, yes, Charlie, I have YouTube compilation links if you need them, where it's just frog TikTok and snake TikTok, and there's also rat TikTok. A lot of rats get dressed up.
I don't need that one.
They look so happy. They're happy rats. They're big rats.
I'm happy they're happy. I don't think I need to see.
They have little facial expressions.
I did.
I know you're a real New Yorker, and you're like, no, I'm not ready to forgive them.
Look, I love Ratatouille, and that's it. I don't care if you have the cleanest, most sparkling white rat as your pet that you clean with pride on a regular basis. That's great. I'm happy for you. No, thank you.
Well, the furthest I've ever ventured into pet land, let's see, I've had a miniature dachshund. And then we had Buster, I guess a golden retriever mix in our childhood. And we've had various cats, all kind of feral cats that we took in.
You had Slick Wilhelmina.
And then Slick Willie, which we later found out was female and was pregnant, Wilhelmina. She was a hamster and became best friends with my cat. I'd put the hamster in the hamster ball, and then the cat would wait for the hamster to chase her. So there's the hamster in the ball chasing the cat, and the cat's like, meow, and running through.
That's so cute, though.
Super cute. They were best friends. Slick Willie lived for 3 years, and she just, it was a lovely life the two of them had. They were good friends.
And then there was Biggie and Smalls, the angelfish.
Those were given to me from a friend who was moving and couldn't take her enormous angelfish with her. They were They were geriatric when I got them. One of them was 10 and one of them was 12 years old at the time. And they
had survived Katrina.
They had survived Katrina and being underwater in the Katrina nasty water for like 2.5 months. Because it turns out, I didn't know this, but angelfish are from like marshy areas in South America.
I didn't know that either.
Well, that's why I was like, how did they survive? So yeah, they lived with us into their geriatric years. They were beautiful, and they were named Biggie and Smalls because, yes.
Of course.
It's funny. You know what? It's funny.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, yeah, I did have those, and that was fun. It was fun, like, watching you figure out tropical freshwater fish, Tom. Like, you know, because Tom was the one who really kind of took over their care, since there's a lot of research and reading that goes into any kind of tropical fish care, let alone even though freshwater is supposed to be easier, it still was.
I feel like people assume like fish are so easy. You don't have to like take them out to walk. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Fish are the most complicated thing. Whereas like, you know, like a dog, you know what you're getting because society always talks about dogs. And like, you also kind of know what you're going to get with a cat because the cat always talks about that. But like fish.
Yeah, the fish got kind of bored and a little sad after a while when they realized their owner wasn't coming back.
So they got depressed is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, yes. So we had to like really work at keeping them in better moods, and fish toys are not as easy as you might think. At least at the local PetSmart, they did not stock fish toys, so we were having to like. It was a lot of work I wasn't expecting. Not that I minded that part. It was just more like I didn't know that fish have so many psychological needs.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Although, apparently, angelfish really are very unique to their own personalities, unlike most other tropical fish, I gather. So be warned. Anyhow, so editing. My favorite thing, and it turns out other people don't like it, but I love editing. Editing is my real jam.
I say, should we go on to the other side of Tom's hot takes?
Yes,
Tom's rewrites.
Tom's rewrites.
Wait, no. Glory said editing's her favorite. Rewriting is my favorite. So in between drafting and editing, because I can do the grammar, but it's not fun. But the revising is like I don't have to deal with the blank page, and I'm still storytelling, so I'm having fun and I'm making things better, which makes me happy.
To me, editing and revising are like just all part of like editing, just because I wasn't like properly trained. So revising is just part of the editing umbrella for me.
Oh no, I also lump it all under, but I assume most people don't, which is why but yes, I like the part that comes after the like, I've already written words, so I don't have to worry about I'm staring at this blank thing and nothing is happening.
Yes, the blank page is where madness lies.
Yes.
I do prefer to have like clay to manipulate rather than nothing and having to like come up with that's more exhausting for me often.
Yes.
But editing and revision is where I have a lot of fun, and I am told I am definitely in the minority. So okay.
But I'm there with you.
Yeah. I mean, when I was like, I guess I'm going to become a writer, the first thing I did was go get the copy of Strunk and White's Elements of Style that my mother had bought for me years before, and actually sat down and read it cover to cover. Like a nerd. And I loved it. So, because I loved they're talking about flow and style and why you edit grammar the way you do and what you're trying to do with flow and action and all that. I really enjoyed that because I want my readers to have the best time with the least amount of snags in their reading. I want them to say, what I want to hear from every reader is, I blinked reading your story and suddenly it was 3 hours later in the middle of the night. And I'm like, yes.
That's what my readers tell me. They're like, it's a short read, but I couldn't put it down. And I'm like, great.
Yeah. I want to hear that they just like didn't even want to put it down, didn't notice the passage of time. That is my ultimate goal. I want people to lose the concept of time in their life reading my stuff.
Okay, now I want to hear your review.
Okay, go for it, Tom.
All right, so most of the Avengers movies, my critiques is more of like, it does need tighter editing. It needs to add in a few lines here and there. But for me, the one that actually needs like a rewrite to me is Avengers Infinity War. And it's because we encounter the classic hero and villain dichotomy problem, which is a hero is only as strong as the villain they're up against.
Okay.
And in Infinity War, no one is ever able to hold their own against Thanos. Thanos is always overwhelming, even without the glove. And so the things I would have changed minor-wise, I would have had someone put in the line first that Thanos, even with the glove, can only use one stone at a time till he gets all 6. So we have to stop him before he gets the last one. He's already got one. He can use them as he wants, but he can only use one at a time.
Which isn't what they did, because when he's in the fight on not Titan, whatever planet that they were on.
The Borat?
Oh yeah, it was Titan. It was like the destroyed version of Titan. Yeah. Where he uses he uses 2 stones at once, like to attack Doctor Strange.
But I mean, it would have been.
I agree with you. I'm saying, but yeah.
Because then we could, and then I would have actually changed the story, to again bring up more. We could ratchet up far more tension by making this a race against time storyline. We wouldn't jump around nearly as much, and have the heroes trying to gain objects of power that can hold their own. At least give them not an edge, but at least give them a chance against an Infinity Stone, kind of like you see with Thor and Stormbreaker. But instead of this just jumping around and this worrying, and we need to get ahead of him, and they keep just losing, and really the entire movie is about how has Earth survived? These heroes are so incompetent.
Truly,
we should have all died already. Like, that's what this movie ends up saying is, no one knows how to work together. They don't know how to organize. They're clueless. It's not positive at all, versus a race against time of trying to get objects to compete with Thanos would have given more of a sense where you could ratchet up the energy each time as they try to fight him with a different object.
Also, it would have had a better through line to follow as an audience about what are we doing versus we're just jumping around trying to catch Thanos and like stop him before he does a thing. Versus, no, we have to get the stones before Thanos gets them, or else he will do terrible things. Of like, that makes more sense, and doing essentially the clicking the clicking clock?
Time bomb.
The time bomb, yeah. Of like, that is a trope we are used to. We are familiar with this idea. We all actually end up doing it in our own life from time to time, where you're trying to turn in a paper before it's too late. You're trying to submit a presentation to your boss before it's too late in the day, and so on. We are familiar with this, which would have helped a lot, because also it would have been distracting from the fact that Thanos' motivation is frankly rather weak, because he does not have much of a backstory. His idea of like, oh, I want to stop the universe suffering with too much population is a very kind of disconnected idea. We don't ever see Thanos. Like, okay, so they changed it from the original comic book storyline, where Thanos is trying to woo Lady Death.
I know, which like also again, it's an active thing.
That
both sides of
that's compelling. Okay, that makes sense.
That's Shakespearean.
It is rather Shakespearean, I will say.
It was so good.
But like, so if we have to take away Lady Death for, I guess, copyright reason, whatever. Anyway, that whole thing is a hot mess. But so if we're going to instead claim that the reason why Thanos is doing this is because he grew up with so much suffering on his home planet, okay, we can go there. But why don't we show what little baby Thanos, little kitty Thanos saw, so that we better have an emotional attachment, so that his motivation makes sense and feels strong to us? But instead it's just, he's just misguided, but, real powerful. So moving on.
Because we also see how much Thanos does not, wish this version of Thanos does not wish any kind of ill on these heroes. He respects them a lot, and he essentially is letting them live because He doesn't want to kill them. He just is trying to accomplish this task, which, all right, that's fine. But let's see that stronger motivation.
Yeah, I thought, now I liked that Thanos was sort of that way, that he wished none of the superheroes direct ill will.
Until Endgame,
until the end, where he's like, how dare you try to thwart my efforts to literally destroy half of the universe's population. How dare you? But and then now it's personal. Like, did you really go with the now it's personal bit? And yeah, they did. But I liked how Thanos' character was actually one of my my favorite ones, because he's kind of Shakespearean. He's very much of, I hate this thing I do, but I'm doing it because it is necessary, because da 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 da. And I kind of enjoy that sort of Shakespearean villainy. That was a little fun.
But we end up with heroes who never can compete, versus let's get little objects of power that can, at least in a very small local space, semi-negate what the stones he currently has do. So also, it seems like they're gaining a fight.
What you did keep pointing out when we were watching the movies was how much the Infinity Stones have their own little personalities, and they want a messy story.
Oh, yes, that was the other part. Is I've seen it only in a very few pieces of sci-fi and fantasy, but it might help a lot of writers figuring out how to tell their story, which is like the concept of, like in Doctor Who, the TARDIS has a will of its own. So the TARDIS only drops the Doctor off at the exact time point where the Doctor will succeed. Not too early, not too late, but where in all the different possible realities, the Doctor will be okay. Because the TARDIS loves the Doctor, and the TARDIS wants to see the Doctor return.
Well, she stole a thief, and never return, with no intention of ever returning him.
And the Infinity Stones, on the other hand, to me, are you can see as very bored, immortal beings who are just interested in what will be the most fun story that they can get to watch,
or adventure, if you will.
And to me, the case in point of proving that yes, the Infinity Stones very much choose when they work and when they don't is in the first Avengers, we see the staff suddenly not mind control Tony, ostensibly because Tony's heart is surrounded by technology, even though his brain and his spinal cord is fine. Okay, but then we see in Ultron that Ultron is able to hold the staff, even though Ultron is not in any way organic.
True.
Has no parts of that, but Ultron's will can affect the staff and get people to do what Ultron wants. So obviously the staff doesn't actually care about technology or organic. It'll work with anything. And so what I'm trying to really get at is the inanimate object.
But I think sorry to get super nitpicky, and you can disagree, and maybe I am wrong. Is I feel like
there's no right or wrong. We're just having a good time talking.
Right. Is the reason it doesn't work on Tony is because it's trying to target something and it's not there, versus you have Ultron driving it. You know what I mean? So like it wasn't an available target for what it was going for, is what I thought happened, because he touches it to
the machinery.
But that's just it.
Yeah,
Ultron
he touches it to the arc reactor, not realizing it's there.
But I just mean the part of Ultron is entirely an arc reactor.
Yeah,
and it still works.
And yet it worked
Ultron's
with
will.
the arc reactor of Ultron's sentience.
And that's why I'd say, no, they get to decide what they do.
About Ultron.
But a way to kind of decide if you're doing a Deus Ex Machina or if you're doing a organic storytelling is like, all right, this anthropomorphize inanimate objects, and in your head question them in your story and see what they would do.
So give your pitch about the lock to a room.
So let's say you've got a lock on a room. Does the lock want to stay closed? Does it consider its real job to never let anyone in? Or is it a lazy guard and it's just like, whatever? as kind of a way to decide like how easy or how difficult is it for someone to pick that lock. Of like, if this lock had its own animus, what would it do in this story? Would it fight against this person, or would it go with them because it's like, hey, this one seems kind of fun? What's in the room anyway?
Which isn't that far from the idea from Alice in Wonderland.
Which is what I was thinking.
And can be kind of a fun idea, even if you don't, like, as the writer, include, like, conversation with inanimate objects like locks or houses even, or whatever. It's still kind of an interesting way. Yeah, or it's an interesting way to sort of add a little bit of a variability to how hard or easy are certain tasks for characters.
And like all these Infinity Stones, how much do they want to be found? How much do they want to work? We definitely see the ether have different toxicity levels depending on what it's with.
Well, I mean, like, think about, like, okay, in horses. So I grew up reading lots of fantasy novels. And in it, inevitably, in nearly every single one, someone steals a horse at a certain point. However, in real life, stealing a horse can be more difficult, I have been told by horse lovers. Because
horses are loyal as hell.
Horses
and
have
stubborn
opinions. They have very strong opinions. And if they do not want to be stolen in the night, they will bite you. They will do all sorts of things. They know how to get back at you as the writer.
They will bite you. They will kick you. They will knock you off. They will.
Yeah. Oh, they will
stomp on you. They got things.
They'll knock you into a briar patch, knowing full well what will happen because they know where the briar patch is. They know what they're doing. And so, like, this idea of, oh, you can just steal any horse. No, you can only steal horses that are already, like, unhappy or sad or being abused by their owners or by the people who have them. So, you know, horses that are cared for and loved, very difficult to steal those. Yeah. So, like, thinking about that I think that adds a little bit of spice to any story where you think about what we consider things that don't have strong opinions, which the way writers write about horses, you'd think they don't have strong opinions. And instead give them all their own dice roll, if you will, of how willing are they to work with this person who's trying to have a means to an end, you know, be it to get into a room, to break open into a house, to get that horse and drive off into the sunset, whatever.
I just read a historical romance, which, you know, out of the ones that I read, not one of the best, but it did have a mule instead of a horse. That was like such a character. And it does exactly what you're saying we should do, where it's like, it's not an inanimate object that doesn't care who's using it.
Right.
I mean, like another example I can think of that a lot of people could relate to, although, sorry, Zara, obviously not you, is if you've ever gotten and driven someone else's car. The way the seat and everything else is arranged gives you very different feelings with the steering wheel and the accelerator. Yeah, it just depending exactly on how it's positioned.
The brakes are, like, especially in modern cars, they adjust to the most common driver. So I can tell when I'm driving someone else's car if they're a heavy braker versus a light breaker, because I hate sharing a car with Tom.
It all comes out.
It all comes out. No surprises here. Tom is a bit of a heavy
you think any complaint she has is not about me?
No.
Bold of you to assume.
He's not the only one that's been a heavy breaker, though, where I'm like, oh my God, I have to like slam the brake all the way down to the floor. I can't just sort of come to a stop. And so, like, yeah, cars really do get used to their owners, especially modern cars. They're designed to be that way, to adjust to the way somebody drives. And so if you have a very different driving style, you're like, I deeply regret getting in behind the wheel of this car.
Again, technically, this car has no animus, but it's very easy to write it with a bit.
To some degree.
But it's easy to write it with a bit of its own interests. And how much does it want to help or hinder the person in it?
Like, think about Back to the Future. Do you remember Biff's car could not be started by anyone but Biff? You remember in the second movie, they go overhead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I was like, in the first movie.
No. Like in the second movie where they review it, you know, where he's like, no, you have to know how to do it, and that's how old Biff starts the car. It's like, how did you do that? Of like, I love this idea of inanimate objects that have like a particular, I don't know, I guess like as you said, animus, they have a little bit of a personality to them, and not just cars, but like anything. Computers, I definitely feel like computers are definitely reflective of their main users. You can tell with some computers have been abused and then they don't behave for anyone else, versus other computers are very happy to play along with anyone who uses them. I'm just saying.
I think also, though, there is the thing where, at least personally, like, technology normally really likes me because I know what it can do, and I'm willing to like do the homework to like get it to work. And then there are people around me who are like, I can't get it to work, and I do one thing and it works for me, even though like I did exactly what you're technically supposed to do and they had to, and it works for me because it's like I'm like, you just do this, you know, and I'm like not yelling at the machine to work or whatever.
I have, however, been known to tell a computer, like, I will make you into a programmable toaster if you don't pull your act together now. We have to get this done. And lo and behold, it tends to work. You know, look, I stand by it. I will program. I will set up a toaster. I will do the things. I will also send computers to the darkness. Let them think about what they've done and see if they want to come back to the light. I'm just saying. So, but I think that even if you don't let your readers in on this little aspect, we kind of do this as humans. We kind of take this idea that the things we frequently use take on a little bit of a personality, whether it's our personality or something else's. And so to strip our stories of all these equipment and other things, to strip them of personality, I think is sort of sterilizing that world a bit, and it makes it feel a little less relatable.
I say, like, one of the things like annoys me with American and most movies, you know, action movies, because they love guns, is how anyone can pick up a gun from someone else.
He complains about this
and hit a target, and it's like, no, most guns are very particular. You have to learn them.
Straight. Most guns do not shoot straight, even though they're supposedly designed. No, you have to figure out which way is it off and compensate.
Yeah, it always drags a little bit one way, and you know how like the trigger and
the first time you shoot a gun is never going to, or is highly unlikely to be accurate, because you have to figure out how that gun is particularly shooting it. And so like any just random person picking up a random loaded gun and being able to shoot somebody accurately, like, excuse me, no.
Or I feel like one that's truly missed out on, but I love when I do occasionally see this scene in action movies, is I just turned off the safety. What the hell? It's like going click click, and it's like, what the? And like they have to do it again, and all of a sudden now the safety's off. And it's like,
yeah. It doesn't want to work with you. That's what it is.
Of like,
doesn't like the way you hold it.
Is its own.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, as humans, we do kind of assign personalities to a lot of the things we use. But why not keep that going in stories? That seems like very relatable. Also, and it doesn't have to be fantasy stories. It can be regular contemporary stories. I have read contemporary fiction. Mostly I'm thinking of, remember those detective novels Mom used to like? Pretty much, did Elliot Gould read this audiobook? Then Mom would play it. And he went through like a solid 10 years of just only doing detective novels. So there was a lot of conversations in California about cars and how like, they would like really go into, why are we going to a page about this car's personality? But there we are. This is the convertible and this is how it drives down Highway 1. Okay. So, like even in more contemporary fiction that doesn't have fantasy elements, I have read this kind of thing. It's nothing new, but people definitely enjoy it. So I don't understand this, like trying to do something sort of ultra realistic when humans do not live in an ultra realistic world. We make magic in our own real lives. So we do. I mean,
if you're in a kitchen, you will at some point, chefs and cooks are very particular about their own knives.
Oh yeah, do not.
And you can definitely at some point add this line in anywhere. Who sharpened my knife? It's crying.
Oh, I have actually heard that, and people had to apologize, and they were hugging and tears, and I'm like, ooh.
I think
I did not sharpen it, by the way. I'm not the one. I was not involved. I was merely a bystander.
You're like, I am not the guilty party.
I'm just saying, yeah. I'm not like that. I'm not like that.
I feel like part of the thing is that a lot of people who are writing, at least I know me to some degree, the reason I started writing was to have more control that, like, you know, that I didn't have as like a kid in the real world, due to age and other really, really shitty circumstances that should not ever happen, but obviously do, which is why people have trauma and stuff. And I think in pursuing that, people ignore the little magic that exists in the real world. That, because if it's not big enough magic to like make your life better or potentially ruin the whole world,
true.
I think you're trying to create a world that you can control. So then you're saying that, like, okay, there have to be set rules and everything has to follow it, because that's an easier way to exert control, versus if you start admitting that, like, oh yeah, this car like isn't going to work for this character. And then you're like, but then that screws up my story. And then, so you just remove it, which makes it ultra realistic, but almost less realistic, like we said, because there are those idiots.
Everyone likes a dirty, a messy world.
Yes.
Because our lives are messy. It doesn't feel truly real if it's not messy for the character.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of mess, you know, of like, where you're like, I don't know if the car will start today. Let's go find out. I mean, that was my childhood. My mother, with every car ever, was, let's see if it starts today. Otherwise, you're going to be late for school. I should have taken the bus. You know, like, and some days the car would start, and some days she'd have to go back in the house and call her boss to pick her up for work. Like, and this was our life, because, you know, and it wasn't even, the boss is even like paying for the car to get fixed, and the car still is like that because the car has a personality. My mother's like, what do we have to do? Do we have to pray? Lay hands on this thing? She's literally calling up.
Do we need to like make a sacrifice to something?
Like literally, people are helping her contact spiritual healers to come pray over the car, do their sacrifices as necessary. Because like, I even by the time I was in middle school, I was cooking for the family every day for dinner. So mom's like, we're gonna have 2 more for dinner, and these are their, you know, dietary needs. I'm like, well, if we have to have fish, you need to go buy some, because I had chicken planned. And like, yeah, it took 6 spiritual healers later. The car then ran smooth and was doing great, as long as 2 different mojo bags stayed attached under the hood on opposite ends from 2 different healers. And then but when someone moved one of them, and the car stopped moving.
Oh shit. Who moved it?
The mechanic who was checking it to change the oil. They found it. Mom's like, it's not going anywhere. She's like, the mojo bag's been moved. Where's the mojo bag? They had to find it. It had been thrown away in the trash at the mechanic's place.
Did they know going forward, don't touch the mojo bags?
Oh yeah, and from then on, the mechanic did not touch it. And then the car worked again, and I'm like, you know, let's just go with it. Mom's like, let's just not ask questions that are too probing. It's okay. We live in a world that's a little bit magical, but at least we have people available who can help us fix the problems. It's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, Mom. So we're only allowed to say nice things in the car about the car.
Don't piss off the car.
Nobody can criticize the car. It's not okay. You have to be nice and pet the car every day that we use it. But it did work.
The car needs to know it's loved.
Yes. We all had to pet the car every day that we used the car. But it worked, and we needed that car to work, and we needed it to be reliable, and it was very reliable after that. And that is like real magic that we lived in. And I just took that as part and parcel for this must be the world we live in when I was a kid. And I thought it kind of made the world a little bit cooler, a little bit more beautiful in its own way. I thought that was kind of nice, because it was like, at least there are people around who can fix the problems and not just mechanics.
Yeah, I think definitely in the Western world, there's like a lot of, there's no magic. It's like So you're telling me that the like ancient civilizations that came up with a lot of stuff way before any modern scientists have caught up with it is what now?
Hey, Chandra.
It's like you don't need to be able to explain everything. And I think in a book, you can have a book that is set in a world where everything is explainable. And most of the time, I don't feel like I'm robbed of something. But I think that when you do add in these things, it's almost better. Yeah.
It adds a little bit of zest to it.
But like you don't want it so much. You don't have it so crazy that you're like, okay, that's just unrealistic.
I feel like you don't have to explain it either. Like, honestly, you can have two characters where one's like, why is it like this? And the other one goes, I don't know. It just works this way. Let's not question it because we need it to work. And and that's fine. Like, you don't.
Right. Like, I would rather have that where you're like, you acknowledge that it makes no sense. And at least the character who is like, can be the voice of the reader in that moment, be like, this makes no sense. And it's like, yep. And
it works. Let's just do it. We got to get from A to B. So let's just go.
I mean, like a case in point of someone actually pulling this move. There's a Netflix movie called Love Guaranteed with Damon Wayans Jr. and I can't remember her name all of a sudden.
I've seen the ads for it. I haven't watched it.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's very much for millennials. I'm not sure if it's going to be as entertaining to you, but in this movie, the what's her name has a old car, and in it is a tape deck which has got a Cyndi Lauper, or was it Tiffany? I think it was Cyndi Lauper. I
think it's Tiffany because you were like, Glory, your love of Tiffany. I think you enjoy watching this movie.
There's a Tiffany cassette stuck in the tape deck since the 80s.
Oh, I feel the age coming upon.
Sorry, I know Cyndi Lauper, but I don't know.
No,
it's pretty similar. Like it's pop. It's pop music for girls.
It was teen pop in the 80s, and like
I know Cyndi Lauper because my mom really Cyndi Lauper. So I was like, I don't know who.
For my 9th birthday, I only asked for 2 cassettes. One was the Beach Boys, and one was Tiffany, and I would play it in the Fisher Price.
If it makes you feel better, I know who the Beach Boys are. It's like every musician you just mentioned, I know except Tiffany.
Well, maybe it might be time to watch the movie so you can at least get familiar with Tiffany's amazing vocals. I'm just saying. Also, she actually hasn't turned out to. It seems like she's not that problematic, unlike many people from the 80s. So But yeah, Tiffany was such a big deal. I was 9. She was like 15. She was a big deal at the time. So because I always kind of thought that the character of Robin from How I Met Your Mother, played Robin Sparkle, was kind of based on Tiffany. Tiffany did a lot of concerts in malls around America in the 80s.
Okay.
A lot of concerts.
So in this movie, they play a couple of songs while she's driving. And, Damon Wayans Jr.'s character asks her, like, do you just really like this person? What's up with... He's like, no, it's been stuck in my car. And, like, because it doesn't always play. And that's the other part. It's like, the tape deck decides when it plays and what song it plays. I don't know.
I love that.
In How I Met Your Mother, Marshall's car had the I will walk 5,000...
Yeah, the
500 miles,
Yeah. Stuck in the thing, and it like couldn't come out, and so that just became part of the car. It's like you don't mess with it, you just go with it.
That's the car's theme song. There we go.
But you give a little bit of character to a vehicle, to an object in the story. It doesn't change the story in any way, but it makes it feel like a more realistic world, because there's just some things in your life you can't explain. There's no good answer. People can come up with some logic to try to answer it, but at a certain point, it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people feel like is more real. Like, there are plenty of people who, before they start the car, they say a prayer that they get to where they're going. You don't know if it helps or not, but that's how their world works. It's fine.
Also, I feel like people are fine with it. Are fine with it being done for like sports superstitions, but like if you like do something for someone else, they're like, oh my god, that's so weird. It's like, and you wearing the exact same outfit every single time without washing it for like a week is normal.
What year was it with Cassie and the chili for the Saints? What was it? 2011? The 2011 or 2012 season?
When the Saints went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay, so, and this is true. This actually happened. The year the Saints went to the Super Bowl, every time I made chili, I would and gave some to my dog, the Saints would win that game. And this happened 3 times in a row.
They've been losing before that point, by the way.
Oh, they've been losing terribly. But like every time, essentially, Cassie, my miniature dachshund, ate the chili I had made fresh, which she loved my chili. Then the Saints would win right then, that game. And I mentioned this to a friend who was like a major Saints fan. And she was like, she would message me like, it's the Saints is playing today. Will you be making chili? And I'm like, oh, I wasn't planning to. She's like, please.
You have to make chili.
It's the first quarter and they are bombing it. It's such and such. It's like so many points against. They're never going to recover. Please, please, please. And I'm like, okay, well, we're heading home now. So I guess I'll pick up some beef on the way and I'll make it. But it might not be done till like the 4th quarter. She's like, I will take anything. Y'all. The chili was done halfway through the 4th quarter, and the Saints pulled a win. And from then on, my friend would like literally drop off beef and any other chili ingredients every Friday before a Saints game on Saturday. So that, and would like, are you going to make it beforehand, put it in the crock pot, and then make sure your mom gives the dog chili. Right? Like she would every time. And I'm like, for you, because I love you, I will do this thing. But the truth is they did go to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, who am I to question this? I'm not about to ruin my friend, and her love of the Saints. Okay, we will. And let me tell you, the dog was thrilled. The dog was like, it's chili every weekend. Yay. The other dogs got chili too. But it was like, but that's how real people are about, but that is a kind of magic. So,
and manifestation is a real thing. And then, then there's the less fun things like, me when I get prophetic dreams, basically only about bad stuff happening. But still magic, still inexplicable, still true.
Still true. Yeah, exactly. And so at a certain point, it's like, who am I to question what weird, zany little thing that the world I live in has, that like it all depends on a chili loving miniature dachshund who lives 2.5 hours away from where the Saints are playing. Like, who cares? We'll make the chili. The dog will have it. The Saints went to the Super Bowl. It was great.
That could be a children's book.
I guess.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, so many happy dogs of children who read
I'm just saying, if you want your team to win, give your dog chili. Happy little puppies make for good karma. I don't know. Also, here's my chili recipe. So it's very easy to do. But like that is real magic that everyday people live in. And nobody really blinks at it too much. Everybody's like, sure, yeah, okay, well, if that's what you need to do, so be it. But so why do we as writers like sterilize our stories from that? Even when we write contemporary fiction.
Like, Captain America polishes that shield every week and has some kind of, ritual to do this.
Oh, like surely he has like, it's a certain kind of polish and he has to go like so many times around
in the proper direction,
right?
Yeah.
And then it has to hang quietly for like so long on the wall before, to let the polish dry. Like surely, like it has a ritual because that's kind of how people are wired. So let's be part of that. Like, yeah, it's contemporary fiction, or like in our library it was always called domestic fiction, which I thought was strange. But it doesn't mean you can't have a little bit of magic, because real life has a little bit of magic and nobody blinks about it. They're just like, okay. growing up, I loved that about my life, that the world I lived in with real adults who seemed very practical and reasonable people also believe, I know, Tom laughs on that part, the reasonable, but that they also operated on this idea that the world was just a little bit magical. Like my mom with the whole, you have to be nice to the car won't start. And you can only say nice things about the car. And you can't talk bad about the car's going too slow or we're going to like not make it to the school because now the car will stop working. Don't upset the car. And my mother wasn't the only one. Like, yeah, her boss had a thing about this coffee pot. And it was like, you can't go to the coffee pot in a bad mood or the coffee machine stops working. And then the repair guy's got to show up and then everybody's without coffee for 3 days. So, if you're in a bad mood, somebody has to bring you the coffee pot and pour you your cup away from the machine. I remember that. Like, it was just like all these little things. This is how people coped with how, I guess, out of control their life feels. But it's not a bad way to cope if you really think about it. I mean, there's worse ways to cope.
Oh, yeah. There's so many worse ways.
There's way worse ways.
Oof.
Yeah, and you don't have to explain it that this actually works or anything. Just this can be a quirk.
Yeah.
So, are we at about a point to wrap up, or are we like still going strong and want to do a bio break? I am cool with either.
I'm cool with either, but I need a little something.
I think I'm actually reaching towards the end.
You reach toward the end?
Okay.
So we shall wrap up. All righty. So let's see. Everybody talk for a minute.
So we've got coming up next month, the exciting reader roundup as we learn about building community. We've got 4 different weeks planned. We're going to try to bring on guests to talk about them as well.
Including Zara.
Yes.
I am going to be I won't be able to stay as long for those as I am today because I don't have class today because it's Memorial Day. Because normally I have class that starts at 6:30 Eastern. But I want to be included in them for as long as I can.
We'll definitely get them started earlier.
Chandra, hello. Are you here for on screen, or are you merely you showed up early for the after show party? Okay.
I had a feeling, given we said, "Oh, we're gonna wrap up,"
right? And Glory's just not quite
there.
Y'all, ADHD is real today. All right. So, Zara, are you ready to do an outro?
Sure.
Boom.
Thank you. My name is Zara Hoffman. I'm an author tuber, and I am the author of 5, soon to be 6 self-published books. I write kind of any genre that interests me for a given story, and I also host writing sprints every Sunday on YouTube, and then also on Tuesdays and Fridays on Twitch. The times are normally at 9 Eastern a.m., but sometimes life changes that, and then I do a pop-up instead. So please follow me there too. And I love doing all things writing.
Cool. Thank you. Yay. Tom, you in the mood? No? Okay.
No.
That's fine. I guess I'll do me. Hi. I'm Glory, and you wandered onto my channel if you don't know who I am. And thank you so much for coming, and we hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did have a good time, we'd love for you to subscribe, click the bell, follow on Twitch, all the good things. Share us with your friends, especially if you feel like, oh, I know a friend who really would love to hang out with y'all. We would absolutely love for them to hang out with us. We're here every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. In June, we're doing Raving Reader Roundup, where we talk about writing stuff to help writers have a better time, help build community in writing community as well as reading community, because both are really important to writers, I think. Also, we're just going to have a good time. The truth is, this is an excuse for me to have a party every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, y'all. If you haven't picked up on this, that is the truth of it. So anyhow, I'm so happy you're here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So thanks so much for coming. And with that, I shall find the right button, and bye-bye, y'all.